backfield. He was good. He was good back on those Bears teams with Cutler.
Yeah, he's kind of like that, let's say, old school Arian Foster in a roundabout way where he can be versatile in both ways in the backfield. But, yeah, no, you're right. One of those underrated running backs out of the Green Wave from Tulane. I mean, another underrated school in some aspects.
Yes, 100%. The Green Wave, they produce some decent running backs. We've seen one on the Titans over the last few years, hoping that Tajay Spears can stay healthy. We've got a lot to get to today. Titans, again, going to hit the practice field coming up a little bit later this morning. The rivalry uniforms are officially out. We will get to those coming up in a little bit. So we do have a look at what the Titans' new alternates might look like. But we have to start with the news this morning. Vanderbilt has announced, or at least it's being reported, that Vanderbilt will start Blaise Berlowitz in week 1 against Austin Peay coming up in 12 days. The former New Mexico State Aggie has been in the system with Tim Beck for a long time now. He's been backing up Diego Pavia, and he does get the nod over 5-star freshman Jared Curtis to start week 1 against the Govs. I will say surprising decision. I've said before that I understand both sides of the argument, that they're looking at a guy who has plenty of experience, knows the system like the back of his hand, and somebody with supreme talent, the highest rated recruit in Vanderbilt history. They end up opting for the more experienced player in Blaise Berlowitz to start week 1.
I mean, let's be fair. If he went to Georgia, he's backing up Gunnar Stockton. So being here at Vanderbilt, backing up Blaise Berlowitz to start the season, it may look bad on the surface, but I feel like on the long-term look at this, it's going to pay off.
Yeah, and, Pete Thamel in his report does say that Jared Curtis will also play in that game against Austin Peay. He's going to get the opportunity to get his feet wet a little bit. I've always said if it's close, go with the young guy because you can get him the reps early and get him acclimated to playing college football before you start facing the SEC schedule. 9 SEC games doesn't give you a whole lot of time to ramp up and get ready for the season. But I do understand that Berlowitz maybe can ease the transition here. I wonder how long it's going to be until Jared Curtis does end up starting, because I don't think this is a decision that's going to be for the full year. If I had to guess, I think Jared Curtis is starting at some point in the non-conference schedule, but I just wonder when that's going to be. When does the decision to take the training wheels off make the most sense for Vandy?
Yeah, I would say probably, like you mentioned, like week 3-ish, week 4-ish, if they get out of the non-conference 3-0, which in my opinion, if they want to go bowling, they have to go undefeated in their out-of-conference games. But it would be interesting to see him, start versus a SEC team, just because that's kind of like a baptism by fire moment. And again, Vandy's in uncharted waters. I mentioned this to you and Connor in weeks past. They've never been in this situation to where they've had a $2 million NIL valued quarterback, and he could potentially change the direction of their entire collegiate, team. So it's just uncharted waters. And I really do think that if they play the long game with him, which is what it seems like, I think it's going to pay off more in a beneficial way than it is in a negative light.
I do know that in this era of college football, you have to be careful because it's not just once you recruit a guy, he's yours for 3 or 4 years like it used to be. I mean, yeah, there were transfers back 10 years ago, but obviously it wasn't quite as widespread as we've seen over the last really 4 to 5 years since COVID. And with Jared Curtis, you do have to keep that in mind of this is a, like you said, franchise or program changing player that you've brought in. You do have to play the long-term game, but you also have to understand you've got to make sure he's happy and that he's going to stick around for the long term. So I do think Jared Curtis is going to be the starter at some point this season, but Clark Lee did say over SEC Media Days that they recruited Jared Curtis making absolutely no promises about what his first season was going to look like. There were no promises that he was going to be the day one starter. He was going to have to come in and earn it just like everybody else. And clearly, Clark Lee, very thoughtful in this process, made the decision that Blaise Berlowitz gives the team the best chance to win, at least in week 1. But we will see. Again, the report from Pete Thamel is that Jared Curtis will play 2 in that game. Who knows how long we're going to see Blaise Berlowitz out there? Are they going to split reps evenly? Are we going to see Curtis come in once the game might get out of hand? I don't know. That's something that Clark Lee may be able to answer when he speaks to the media next. But I do think that this is. I don't think this is a decision for the full season. I think this is a decision for one, and they'll be able to reevaluate as they go along.
Yeah, and let's remember this is a SEC Coach of the Year at one point, Clark Lee. Every decision he makes with this Vanderbilt football program is calculated, and that's why he has gotten them to bowl games. That's why he's reached new heights with this program. I do think you make a good point of like, could they potentially do a 2 quarterback set throughout the season? And correct me if I'm wrong, Jake, but Mike Wright and AJ Swan, did they not split reps at one point together behind center?
Yeah, I mean, I believe they did back in, what was that, 2023, 2022?
Something like that.
Yes, because AJ Swan was he wasn't the type of prospect that Jared Curtis was, but he was viewed as, oh, this is the quarterback of the future. And they did ease him in a little bit. And when he did get in, you saw that he was very, very turnover prone, right? Like that was the issue with AJ Swan, was that he couldn't quite make the right decisions and he put the team in a bad situation. I have not been out there enough to see what Jared Curtis is doing in practice. I've watched the spring game and I watched one scrimmage. I wouldn't say that there's that kind of concern, but you do have to worry about a freshman making freshman mistakes. And even if he is the more talented player, with the run game that Vandy has and defense that they have coming back, I do wonder if maybe the decision was, let's get somebody who is more of a known commodity that can distribute the ball when we need him to, but we know isn't going to make the mistake that's going to cost the team.
Yeah, and I could also see in that first game with Austin Peay, Jared Curtis takes the second half, and you have Blaze Berlowitz take the first half. And then you go into Delaware and you think, well, maybe if Jared Curtis looked good in the first game of the second half, maybe he gets the start, then vice versa. They split another half. But I think once you get to NC State, you need to have a decision of who you're going to have at quarterback, because once you get to Auburn, and I have a few friends. One was a punter at Mississippi State, and he said his first ever SEC game was at Auburn, and he said that was the loudest environment, more chaotic than ever. I could only imagine for a freshman quarterback going into Auburn and just hearing the eruption of the fans. It's shaping up to be something very difficult and fun at the same time. But if you're Vandy, you got to have somebody consistent by week 3 or week 4.
Right. That's the one concern for me, and that's been my argument all along, is that if it's close, doesn't it make more sense to give Jared Curtis the runway to improve and give him the ability in these games where Austin Peay, you're probably a 4-touchdown favorite. Delaware, probably a 3 to 4 touchdown favorite. Give him the opportunity to go out there and play loose and maybe get some of those jitters and nervous energy out of him. You know, it's a lot. The first time that you walk into a stadium as the starting quarterback, and the first time you take the field and get into a huddle and go through all of these first, I always thought it made more sense for it to happen at home against those types of teams, because you look at Auburn and Georgia as your first 2 games in the SEC, both those games on the road. That's not an easy way to make your first career start, like you said, Nick. But even week 3 against NC State, like NC State's not a bad team. It's not an SEC team, and you get to play it at home at the very least, but that is no gimme that you're going to get in week 3. I do think that if you plan on playing Jared Curtis at some point early in the year, he's got to get those reps and get those firsts out of his system to make sure that he's not going in. And it's just, Jared Curtis, I think, is a very confident player. And I don't think it's going to be one of those things where he's a deer in the headlights out there completely, but you also don't want him to go out there and completely lose his confidence because he's being thrown into the fire against Auburn or Georgia in one of the toughest environments to play in the country.
Yeah, and you mentioned NC State there. I mean, they still have their quarterback from last year, CJ Bailey. I mean, you have Duke Scott that's now taking that running back role because Hollywood Smothers transferred to Texas. But they went to the portal and they got 2 starting wide receivers, Davion Dozier and JoJo Trader. And those 2 are, upperclassmen. They're juniors that understand what it takes to play at a high level. And, if Vandy's defense is not, up for the standards of it, NC State could, maybe take a few touchdowns here and there, and Vandy will be in a little bit of a tight corner.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what this long-term looks like. Corey Curtis just texted in and brings up an idea of, do you think they might just be throwing Blake a bone here? I'll be surprised if he starts week 2 or 3. And maybe that's it, of this is a guy who's been paying his dues over the past 2 years at Vandy and beyond that at New Mexico State. He's been working, and they want to honor him and give him the opportunity to start week 1. I have no idea. Clark Lee, I'm sure, is going to speak to the media at some point this week leading up to week 1 and be able to tell you what went into the decision and what this looks like beyond the first week of the year. But I do think that for Vanderbilt this year, the plan has to be to make sure Jared Curtis is ready to go for next year, right? Like, obviously the results matter this year, but I think this is a building year, and you want to have Jared Curtis ascending as the season ends, heading into year 2 and feeling comfortable and confident. When you have a more talented roster around him already this year, you can take that to another level next year. I do think that the plan this season has to be centered around Jared Curtis and building around him for the next 2 to 3 years to get this team back into a college football playoff contention.
Well said. Yeah, I just think for Blaise Berlowitz's situation, like you said, throw him a bone. I think it's more of the continuity with that offense, like you mentioned, Jake, from New Mexico State up to Vanderbilt. It's more of like, hey, young buck, take a step back and watch how this offense really works in an in-game setting. And once I feel like Jared Curtis gets the gist of that, that's when I think they just make the switch in the first or second game. And then from there on out, that's where you're going to see Curtis hopefully flourish in this Vanderbilt offense.
Yeah, we will have to find out. I do want to get Connor's thoughts on this, and we can do that coming up next. Have you guys seen the Music City rivalry uniforms?
Not a fan.
Really?
I don't
Okay,
like
we'll get into that later this hour too. The rivalry uniforms are out. As 1178 says that the rivalry jerseys were leaked by Fox News this morning. I did see the jersey, but we didn't know what the color helmet it was going to be. It's the light blue. So we'll get into that too here in hour number 1. Again, I am live at Titans training camp at Vanderbilt Health Football Center. Practice going to get going later on this morning. We'll give you updates when we can at the end of practice today. Not open to the fans. We'll also have player interviews and much more throughout the day. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. If you want to text or call, our phone line's driven by Wilson County Hyundai, online at wilsoncountyhyundai.com. We'll continue talking Vandy. Again, the reports from Pete Thamel and On3 this morning. Blaise Berlowitz going to be the starter in week 1 against Austin Peay, but Jared Curtis will also play. We'll talk about it more coming up next. Jake Lyman, Nick Frazier, Connor Nute, next man up, 102.5 The Game. Keep up with training camp with 102.5 The Game for the latest updates, player interviews, and more as we get you prepped for the upcoming football season. Coverage of training camp is presented by Twin Peaks Restaurants, Parman Tractor and Equipment, Nelson's Greenbrier Distillery, and Tri-State Water, Power, and Air. Jake Lyman, Nick Frazier, Connor Nute with you. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. We are live at Titans training camp. Practice will get going a little bit later this morning. We'll give you updates at the end of practice if we can. Did want to stick with Vandy here. The decision this morning was reported by Pete Thamel and On3 that Blaze Berlowitz will start week 1 against Austin Peay. Jared Curtis still going to play. We don't know what this means long-term for the season. But Connor, I know you have some strong thoughts about this decision. I wanted to get your take on it.
I hate it. I think it's a horrible decision because you bring in the highest rated recruit that this program has ever seen and you don't give him the start. I think some of it is I'm comparing it to what the other team in the state did in Tennessee, and you start your true 5-star freshman and you ride with him. But to me, in today's modern college football, you can't bring in the big fish like that and then slowly bring him along. Because if you try to slowly bring him along, he's going to get unsettled with it. He's going to get upset with his position, and he's going to, pack things up and leave and find someone who will start him. That's the fear. So I think it's a dumb decision. I understand he's going to get in there and probably be the starter later down the stretch, and maybe they are, in fact, throwing Blaze Berlowitz a bone. But you have a pristine opportunity against an FCS team of a lot less significant talent to throw a true 5-star freshman. Again, the number 1 quarterback in the class. You have the opportunity to throw him a bone and throw him out there and see what he can do against probably the easiest team on your schedule. I don't understand the decision. I really don't. I just think it would have been so much easier if you did, in fact, decide to start your true freshman out there. And maybe this is the new age Connor thinking of this is how college football works now. We've seen it across the nation. Tennessee's doing it. Michigan did it last year. There is someone else that did it too. I can't remember off the top of my head, but you have to do this. And I understand you want to go with the veteran leadership, but that is an NFL mentality. It's not a college football mentality. And a college football mentality says you start the young gun, otherwise he walks. That's just my thinking.
I get what you're saying of, yes, in this new age of college football, you have to make sure you're keeping your highest rated recruits happy. Right? Like the guys you bring in, there's going to be interest everywhere else, and every other school, even once you get them to commit and sign and they're on your team, there are other teams that are still trying to get him to come and hop in the portal and come play for them. I also think you have to balance it, though, with you can't kill the young man's confidence, right? Like there's got to be a balance of, yes, he's got to get into the games because you don't want him to become unhappy, unsettled, I think was the word you said, which is a good one. But I also think you can't throw him in there and say, all right, we're throwing you to the Wolves. And if he struggles, you may just lose that confidence that allowed him to be the prospect that he is. I understand why Clark Lee is doing it. I think it's just it's going to be a balance of finding the right moments to insert him early on. And I think Clark Lee, the way he talks about Jared Curtis, I think Clark's going to know when the right moment to fully hand the reins off to him is. I don't know when that's going to be. Is it going to be midway through the Austin Peay game, right? Like, is this just hey, let's give Blaze Berlowitz the opportunity to start and thank him for his years of service, but this is Jared's team and he'll take over end of the first quarter or whatever it is. Or is it, we're going to have both of them play. Maybe they'll each play a half against Austin Peay, and whoever plays better starts against Delaware. I don't know. That's a question for Clark Lee to answer. But I do understand the idea of balancing the not wanting to just completely throw him into the fire and see, maybe he loses all of his confidence and you've got to bench him at some point halfway through the season, or you have to balance the side of, if we don't play him this year, we might lose him in the portal. So you've got to look at both sides of that there.
Yeah, and also too, Jake, and I don't want to, sound like a negative Nelly when saying this, but when Jared Curtis joined Vandy during the, bowl game practices to kind of understand the offense a little bit. I mean, going back to his high school senior year, and again, yes, put on a show for sure. But the closest game they had was week 2 against Innsworth, 42-41 in overtime. The rest of those games, 45-13, 58-0, 71-6, 53-0, 49-42. That was the second closest game, Tyner Academy. My point is, I don't know if the quality of play he had his senior year was enough to really prepare him for a start his freshman year at Vanderbilt in the SEC, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I know a lot of people have talked about that too. Of he played at a small private school. It's not like he was playing 6A Texas football over the last 4 years and was playing against a ton of other high-level Power 4 Division I prospects. So people have talked about that before of, is he going to be ready to make the jump to college football? I just wonder if the ramp-up process of getting Austin Peay, Delaware, NC State, and then into the SEC schedule would have been more beneficial. But again, we don't know at this point of how long Blaise Berlowitz is going to play against Austin Peay, how long Jared Curtis is going to play, what's the plan for week 2. All we know at this point is that Blaise Berlowitz is going to get to start. I guess we kind of have to wait for Clark Lee to clear up and fill in the gaps here for us to be able to make a full-on conclusion about this. But I think overall, I understood both sides of the argument here of starting the experienced guy in Blaise Berlowitz, but also the uber-talented young guy in Jared Curtis. We're just going to have to see how Clark Lee massages this situation throughout the entire season.
And also to add on to that, Jake, like you guys mentioned earlier, like trying to keep the freshman quarterback at bay, like, you know, if he's happy or not happy, make sure he doesn't transfer, whatever, the following season. Jared Curtis is getting paid, what, $2+ million in NIL value? Like, to be fair, I think he's pretty content with where he's at right now. And maybe, you know, he sits a game or two, whatever, just to understand the offense. And I know he's had all offseason to do so, but I don't think that there's a worry at that point of keeping him satisfied to be with Vandy until, you know, maybe the record goes south, but I just don't see that happening. But I don't know. Maybe I'm just looking at this from a different lens.
Yeah, I don't know. I was a little surprised to see the news this morning that it was Berlowitz. I would have understood both decisions, but I was kind of leaning that I thought it would be Curtis. We will see. I don't know when Clark Lee's next media availability is, but I'm sure he'll be able to clear up some of the confusion here of, is this just a decision to reward Blaise Berlowitz for all the work he's put in for the last couple of years, and then you pivot to Curtis? Or is this a decision for just 1 week, and then we'll see what happens? Or is it a decision for the long haul? We don't really know, but it does look like Curtis is going to play in that game against Austin Peay as well. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. If you want to text or call, our phone line's driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel at 1025 The Game for live shows and exclusive content. Again, I am live at Titans training camp. Coordinators going to speak shortly here, so we'll give you any updates if there's any noteworthy nuggets from those press conferences coming up, and then practice gets going in a little bit here. I did want to get to the uniforms coming up next. The rivalry uniforms are out. Titans going back to Navy. They've got the light blue helmets. We'll give you our thoughts on them. And Houston doing what Houston does best, trying to copy the Oilers colors and say that they're theirs. We'll do that after this. Jake Lyman, Nick Frazier, Connor Nute, next man up, 1025 The Game. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman, Nick Frazier, Connor Nute with you. Again, I'm live at Titans training camp. Practice will get going within the next hour. Again, not open to the fans. We can't give you live updates today, but we'll hopefully be able to give you some updates before the show wraps up at noon. Titans, along with 7 other teams, releasing their rivalry uniforms this morning. The NFC North and the AFC South getting to use these alternates this year. The Titans, they go to the navy two-tone blue. They've got the light blue numbers, light blue helmets, and the Music City in white script across the chest. I like it. I got to say, I'm a fan of it. I think the light blue helmets are sweet. I'm glad they went with that over another navy helmet. I was getting a little excited about a possible black uniform. I think the Titans were trying to tease that they could be going with black. But I am glad after all of the controversy when the Titans went back to the Oilers color scheme and people wanted the navy, I'm glad there is now a navy option and a two-tone blue option for everybody out there.
Jake, I don't know. Connor and I at the back of the studio, we're just not on board with the New Jersey combo. I mean, what I see initially, I see the Los Angeles Rams just number font. I see a dark blue jersey that doesn't really pay homage to the old navy blue. And then I see the helmet, which I'm a fan of. I think they need to implement that helmet with some of their primary uniforms. Like, I'm not saying the home, blue jersey, but I'm talking about the away jersey with the baby blue helmet and white pants. I think that would look nice. This is going to have to grow on me. Like, I just tweeted, I was like, this is a jersey that's going to have to grow on me. I just can't get on board with it just yet.
Yeah, you guys don't seem to be big fans of it. I will say that out of everything involved with it, the helmet is my favorite part. Like, yes, the light blue helmet, that's something that we haven't seen before from the Titans. I do think that maybe it does open the door, like you said, to use this in other combinations. You would probably have to change out the decals to add a little bit of red to make it match. But that doesn't change like the 2 helmet rule or whatever they're using now. I know it used to be the 1 helmet rule, but you could still use this helmet, change out the decals, and use that as like an alternate look with your home jerseys. I kind of like that, but I will say the helmet's the best part. I'm not completely sold on the jersey, but I like the Music City. I like that they've switched it up. It's a little bit different. I guess I might have to talk you guys into these ones. You guys both seem to not be into it too much.
I'm just not a fan. I like the helmet. I think the helmet looks nice, but it looks like a Titans carbon copy of the Detroit Tigers, which is probably why you like it.
Oh yeah, I mean it does look kind of like the City Connects of the Tigers.
It looks like that, and it looks like the Detroit blackout uniforms with the helmet. I feel like we could have gone away with the navy. I really like the Oilers look, and a lot of people don't. A lot of the older fans aren't huge fans of it because the two-tone blue is synonymous with this city. I don't know. I just think the font looks too Miami Vice for me. The navy doesn't look like the same color navy that the Titans have usually used. It looks a little bit lighter. And I don't really like the Music City across the chest. But I'm also not a huge fan of the rivalry uniforms in general, or even like City Connects or stuff like that. I don't know. Maybe I'm spoiled by the current look of the Oilers colors and the light helmet and the light blue jerseys. I don't know. I'm just not a huge fan. You're going to have to talk me into them. I can't get there yet.
I think I am a bigger fan of their base uniforms than these. I just think the Oilers look is their best look. But I think this is a nice change of pace to have with what you have now. Now that you've gone to the Oilers colors, having something that is more Titan-centric, I guess I do see what you're saying about it not being the original like Titans navy blue, but it's close. It's close. I do think it's funny though, and I saw Easton Freeze tweet this out. It's hilarious that these are the Titans Broadway Nights jerseys. And because they play no primetime games, we're going to see Broadway Nights at noon on a Sunday against the Jags.
Gotta love it. You gotta love it. And if it's at, somewhat of 85 degrees in the middle of September, then that's going to be even better because they'll be sweating up, because it's going to be toasty.
That is true. At least this one is it like first weekend in November that they're going to be playing?
Right.
Or sometime early. Like so, yeah, but they are going to wear these for the next 2 years, I think. So this won't be the only time you wear them. You would think the Titans would have a primetime game next year after back-to-back years without one. Maybe not. I thought they would have had one this year, but I do think that you would think they'd be able to finally wear these at night next year. I like the jerseys. I really do. I am a little disappointed it's not black. I've been saying for years they need red or black uniforms. I do wonder, and I think Chase brought this up, this is their navy, and maybe next year they introduce a red alternate uniform that looks like their base ones now. The Oilers colors, but it's a red uniform. I just think for years people have been asking for red uniforms. People wanted the black uniforms this year with the rivalries. Throw the fan base a bone here. I think a red uniform, a red alternate would.
Bud never liked the red. I don't think it'll happen. But I mean, look, we can always hope for it, right? I mean, I do think in this current rivalry uniform they put out with the numbers, like if you go look in detail, I would have liked to have seen a very thin line of red piping around the white. I know it's trying to ensemble the neon sign. Well, if you want that number to truly pop, give us a little bit of a red outline outside the white, inside the I guess, number, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that.
There's just, like you said, Jake, there's not enough red in here. I need some red.
I think they were trying to get away from the red for this one because they leaned so hard into the Oilers colors for the new uniforms. And you remember the outrage after they released these uniforms of, oh, this isn't Titans, this is Houston, this isn't Nashville. It's like, I think this was kind of all right, you wanted Titans colors, here's Titans colors for you. Here's your two-tone blue. I like it. I do think that the new ones that they've got, the ones we've already seen, are better, but I think this is a good addition to the wardrobe.
Yeah, and like we talked about earlier with the helmet, if they can combo it with other uniforms, if they can, obviously they can't do this, but the jersey, the Music City navy blue jersey, if they could combo that with some white pants, I'd be all right with it. I think that'd be something to look into, but that's just me.
Wes from Hermitage on the text line says, I don't think the uniforms matter unless your starters can beat any team's backups. I hear you guys, but this team is absolutely terrible. Y'all want us to look elite while playing football this bad. It's separate conversations, right? These aren't uniforms. The uniforms they released in, was it April that those came out, or March?
Yeah, early in the year.
And the ones they released today, it's like they're going to be wearing these for a while. Eventually, this team's going to get better, right? You hope it's this year they take a step, but eventually they have to get better, right? And they'll still be wearing these uniforms.
Look good, play good in some sense, but if you're not playing good, I mean, you're gonna look good, but it's not gonna look good on paper.
I feel like old man yells at cloud today. I hate the decision for Vanderbilt. I don't particularly like the uniforms. Maybe I'm the negative one around here.
Yeah, somebody woke up on the wrong side of the bed this morning, Connor.
Well, I was.
We've come to you back-to-back segments, and I think the first words you've said are, I hate it.
I didn't say I hate it. I don't hate these. I just don't like them.
Get off my lawn.
David in Arkansas says, I don't think red alternate will ever be an option, especially since Houston wears red as an alternate. I will say, I don't think the Titans care what Houston is doing, because clearly Houston doesn't care what the Titans are doing. Have you seen their uniforms?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, their post was, our city, our colors, our team. And it's basically a carbon copy of the Titans road uniforms right now. It's white with the red and light blue stripes, light blue numbers. They might as well. It's literally the old meme of like, hey, can I copy your homework? Sure, just change it up a little so people don't notice. Like, it's exactly that. They changed the font. The colors may be a little different. Basically, what Houston said is, we're going to make it as close to Oilers uniforms, but not close enough that we're going to get sued by the Titans for using it.
It is the thinnest of thin red piping on the outside of the numbers. If you go back and look at it, it is the thinnest of red lining on it. It is hilarious.
It is so funny that the Titans have already gone after the University of Houston for using Oilers-like colors.
Yes.
This is way closer than it should be, I think. I mean, the quote-unquote H-Town blue that they use, it's a little bit different from what the Titans are using, but it's not that different. And if you remove the logos, it might as well be the same as the Titans road uniforms they're wearing right now.
Yeah, basically so. I mean, when you compare the Texans uniforms to the Titans uniforms, who would you say wins that right now, Jake?
The overall or the rivalry?
The
ones?
rivalry.
I mean, the Houston ones, we've already seen them. The Titans
Sure.
wore them 2 weeks ago. So I'm gonna say the Titans one is better.
Okay. Interesting. I
We
don't know. It's hard to beat the all whites. But again, like you said, we saw it 2 weeks ago. So
we can yeah, like Justin Mello quote tweeted the Texans announcement with cease and desist. Like it is uncanny how similar they look. We will talk about some of the other ones. Wrap up hour number 1 after this. Again, I am at Titans training camp. We'll talk plenty of Titans today. We also didn't get into it yesterday, but there's been a lot more developments with NFL players returning to college football. We'll get into that in hour number 2 as well and get to your phone. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. Jake Lyman, Nick Frazier, Connor Nute. Next man up, 125 The Game. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman, Nick Frazier, Connor Nute. Live at Titans training camp today. Titans coordinators about to take the podium. In fact, I'm watching Brian Dable walk up to the podium right now. So if there's anything notable from their conversations with the media, we will let you know. But we were talking about the rivalry uniforms that are out right now for the entire NFC North, the entire AFC South. We went through the Titans ones and the Texans, who have basically carbon copied the Titans / Oilers uniforms. Any of the other ones stand out to you guys? I think the other two in the AFC South are horrible. I think the Colts and Jaguars ones are not good at all.
Yeah, Colts, I don't know what they were thinking. Jags, I mean, the Jags are synonymous for always having bad rivalry uniforms or those City Connects, whatever you want to call them. I mean, they just never can seem to get the branding right. But, you know,
bring back the mustard yellow.
Yes. I'm all about the mustard yellow. What was that with Jack Del Rio era? Correct.
That was Blake Bortles.
Oh yeah,
that
Blake
was
Bortles.
yeah. Well, yeah. Del Rio was Del Rio there at that point. No, it was Doug Marrone was their coach at that point, I think. But God, I mean, was there anything better than Thursday night Titans Jags color rush Bortles Mariota with the baby blue versus the mustard yellow? That's prime Thursday night football right there.
Yeah, that's what everybody just yearned for. They wanted to sit down on their televisions and watch on NFL Network back in the day when the Color Rush was on NFL Network. Now it's on Prime. But, yeah, those were the good old days of the NFL.
That's what I was hoping they would do with these rivalry uniforms, because we knew that the Titans were going to play the Jags when they wore these. Just bring back the old school Color Rush and have them duke it out like they did back in the I guess the Jags were good in 2017 was the year they made or 16 was the year they made the run to the AFC Championship game.
17.
Was that
17
Josh Allen's rookie year too, or no?
Yeah. Well, it was the year it was Tom Brady was like the best quarterback in the conference championships, and then it was
it was Bortles, Foles, and Case Keenum. Yeah, that was a great championship Sunday. And honestly, the Jags should have won that game. Miles Jack kind of got screwed. They ruled him down by contact. He would have taken it back for a touchdown. So, but it was like the 3 years before that when the Jags and Titans were both bad. And it's like mid-November, Thursday night football game. The only reason to watch was the horrible color rush matchup. So I'm not a huge fan of the Jags one. I'm not a huge fan of the Colts one. The Colts one looks almost exactly like their alternate they've been wearing for the last year or so. It was like Indiana Knights or something that they've been wearing with the blue helmets. So anyway, and the NFC North, a lot of them look pretty basic, like similar to what they already wear. The Lions one, they just look like they're the Carolina Panthers.
Yeah, it's like a weird gray. I don't know how to describe that. It's like a grayish silver. I get you're trying to get the Motor City vibe, but it just doesn't hit. I mean, the black numbers. What are we doing?
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of that one. I think out of the NFC North ones, my favorite one is the Packers. I think the Packers is my favorite one.
See, I think they suck.
Really? You don't like me and you have very different opinions on uniforms.
They look like Knox Catholic. Like they look like high school jerseys to me.
See, I like it. I think it's a good, because the Packers couldn't get too far away from tradition, I don't think. With that franchise, you've got to keep it kind of within the realm of green, yellow, white is really the only places you could go. I think it's a good look for them. I think it's a nice twist on their classic look. What's your favorite out of the NFC North, Connor?
Out of the North, I guess the Vikings. I don't really like any of them, but the Vikings kind of with like a burnt purple with the Norse font.
Yeah,
it looks all right.
I do like the Vikings one.
The Bears look like Illinois to me. I'm not a huge fan of those. And then the Lions look like a Pop Warner high school football team, so not a fan.
Yeah, I will say I think if I had to rank the NFC North ones, I'll go Packers, Vikings, Bears, Lions. And then AFC South, I think the Titans have the best of the AFC South. I'd put Houston second, even though I think they're just trying to be petty. And then I'll go Jags, Colts in that one.
I'll actually flip-flop with you, Jake. I'm going to go Jags second, then Houston, just because we've seen it already. I think it's kind of funny. Like, we all trash on the Jags. We get it. But the cheetah print pants is pretty funny. I think that is That is a
Yeah.
nice touch.
The cheetah print on the pants is it's a nice touch. I mean, I will give them that.
I like the
I
helmets.
I was talking with Chad over here. I just thought the color of the pants didn't make a whole lot of sense. Like I like the stripe with the cheetah print, but like I don't know if it makes the most sense of what they could have done. Like is it black pants that they've got? Like I would prefer the teal white teal.
Yeah, I could see like the teal pit. Yeah, that would be nice. But I think it's because their secondary logo is, or second or third logo. What am I talking about? Color is black. That's where you look at the cleats and say black and that teal blue is why they do that. But I don't know. Teal and gold would have been nice for the not shorts, but the pants. That'd be kind of nice. But they just can't figure it out. I mean, that's typical NFL.
Yeah, I mean, anyway, I think overall it's I think done a good job with these rivalry uniforms through 2 years. Like I think it's nice to give teams more looks. Like I always hated the one helmet rule for such a long time, especially when the Titans were to bring the Oilers uniforms back, but because of the one helmet rule, when they had the Navy helmet, you couldn't change it. So I'm glad. I don't think you need to have each team gets 8 different uniforms like the NBA. It feels like every team wears a different uniform every night. I don't think you need that, but I think it's nice to have the NFL give these teams more looks. Like the Bills uniforms they released, they're the same uniforms, but they're doing the red helmets again. Like I think that's great. Give these teams more looks where they can have different combinations, different variations from week to week.
It's fitting how the Green Bay Packers and Chicago Bears, both are one of the most historic franchises in all of the NFL, and yet they try to reinvent the wheel, but not really reinvent the wheel. They keep it pretty simple, and it's cool because you start the college football season for Notre Dame and Wisconsin at Lambeau Field. Those jerseys the Green Bay Packers have remind me a little bit of both Wisconsin and Notre Dame. I know that's not the gist of what they're trying to do, but it kind of folds everything together in a roundabout way.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with you. 615-737-1025. Chip from Mount Juliet, who is a Packers fan, says, love the Packers jerseys. Very nostalgic and old school. 4312 says, all City Connect jerseys suck across all sports. Look who designs this, and do they actively try making them all look terrible? Yeah, it's tough. Like you mentioned the Tigers ones, Connor. I think those ones have aged horribly, and they barely even wear them anymore because they have the new alternates that look way better. It's a tough line to go with the alternates and try and make them unique and have connections to the city, but also not completely overdo it. So I'm not going to say all of the new alternate City Connect, whatever you want to call them, jerseys suck. But I think it's a thin line. Like you can go from clean and looking nice to just being super tacky very, very fast.
Yeah, the shelf life is very short. Like Connor and I both Cardinal fans. The Cardinals put out a post on their Twitter saying what shirt and helmet. Why did I say it again? My goodness.
Jersey and cap.
Hat combo. My goodness. Words are hard. Thank you, Connor. Your quote, by the way.
Patent pending.
Yes. No, they put out a tweet saying, what do you like the best for combinations? And then they went with it. So, I mean, I just feel like these rivalries, City Connects have a short shelf life.
615-737-1025 is the phone number. If you want to text or call, our phone line's driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Brian Dable is at the podium. Couple of notes here. Led off with saying he's pleased where the guys are at. It's a competitive training camp so far. Says there's not a lot of teams that throw it deep down the field. It's certainly not on Cam. It's on all of us. It's an element of the offense where the whole team needs to improve. Did give Fernando Carmona some props on what he's been able to do on the offensive line. So we'll let you know if anything notable comes out of Brian Dable. Gus Bradley, Bones Fossil speaking to the media this morning. Again, Titans practice going to get going in just a little bit. Coming up next, though, I want to get into some college football topics. The big story this week, NFL players suiting up for their teams on Saturday and committing to LSU on Sunday. We will talk about it coming up next. The Big Ten also making a rule trying to prevent this. We'll give our thoughts after this. Hour number 2, more Titans talk as well. 615-737-1025. Jake Lyman, Nick Frazier, Connor Nute. Next man up, 125 The Game. Second hour, next man up, 102.5. The Game. Jake Lyman, Nick Frazier, Connor Nute with you. Again, I am live out at Titans training camp today. Titans coordinators speaking to the media. Practice will get going in just a little bit. Nick and Connor back at our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. We'll have lots of Titans talk coming up in the second half of the show, but I did want to get to the news around college football, really college sports in general this week. NFL players literally standing on NFL fields on Saturday. Daquan Wright was with the Browns warming up in full uniform on Saturday. Sunday, he commits to LSU. And then yesterday, a former Saints defensive lineman, Xavier Harris, who was with Ole Miss, now he commits to LSU. If we want to flip over to basketball, R.J. Lewis, former Boston Celtics Utah Jazz guard, he's been granted a preliminary injunction, becoming eligible to play for, you guessed it, LSU this season. I mean, why is it always LSU that seems to just want to, I mean, is the right word ruin college sports? Like, we've seen other coaches come out. Dan Lanning this week came out and stood up against it and said it's wrong. You shouldn't be taking these guys. But of course, LSU says, hey, somebody else is going to take him if we don't. So we've got to go get him. I mean, it's just ridiculous what's going on right now.
What a line from Lane Kiffin yesterday in that press conference. If we don't take him, somebody else will. And I'm thinking, no, what you're doing is you're stretching the rule book here, and you're just seeing whatever you can get away with, and whatever you get away with, they'll just ban the rest of whatever's left in the rule book. So I don't see it happening. I know the SEC put out a statement last night saying that once you turn pro, you're pro. You can't come back. But, I mean, to what degree? That was just more of like a slap on the wrist. Like, hey, don't do this.
Right.
But yet you still have the opportunity to because, the courts.
Right. I mean, what sucks is the NCAA, the conferences, they just have no legal backing until the Protect College Sports Act gets passed or they do collective bargaining or whatever solution it is. Like, the NCAA obviously is saying that these players aren't eligible, but if a court allows them to, they can't go against it. And like the Big Ten this morning announces, hey, we're making a rule. You NFL players can't come back and play for Big Ten schools. But guess what? If somebody wants to, they're just going to take you to court, and they're probably going to get their temporary restraining order or their injunction or whatever it is to be able to play. I mean, I think what the NCAA needs to do, or maybe it's the College Football Playoff Committee, needs to come out and say, if you play these players, we're going to punish you for it, right? Like, come out and say, these players are ruled as ineligible by the NCAA. You're deciding to play with them anyway. And guess what? If you play with them, we're going to hold that against you, and you're not going to get selected for the college football playoff. That would stop people from taking them really quickly. And I don't believe that would be against the restraining order. You're allowing them to play, but there shouldn't be anything to stop the teams who take these players, to punishing the teams who take these players. You're not punishing the kid. You're punishing the team at that point.
Now, here's the concern, though, is if it's 4 or 5 Power 4 school teams that are always in playoff contention that follow suit with all this, and they take 1 player or 2 players that were in that free agency pool, they come back and play. Well, they're in the College Football Playoff Committee is probably thinking, like, to your point, Jake, no, you can't do this. We're not going to include you in the playoff that way. But look at all the TV money that's being lost out or that's not being taken in from that. So that's the other catch-22 of the conversation. I get your side of it, and I'm with you. But there's the money aspect of this. College football makes the most money out of all the college athletics. If they don't agree to it, then that's the big downfall.
Well, and it's a similar conversation to what we had with Brendan Sorsby. He was ruled ineligible by the NCAA. He got a friendly judge to overturn it. And now you're looking at ways to stop it. Like, how can the conferences, how can the College Football Playoff Committee, how can the NCAA just not allow this to happen? Because it is bad for college sports. Objectively, it's bad for college sports. And I think even Lane Kiffin would tell you that it's bad for college sports. But guess what? It's not bad for Lane Kiffin, so he's going to do it. And so that's what frustrates me is everyone knows this is wrong and this isn't good for the game. But when winning is paramount, and, Lane can make that stupid excuse of, well, these guys are available for us to recruit, and if we don't do it, someone else will. I mean, like Dan Lannon came out and said he wasn't going to do it. I did see Ryan Day came out and said he was going to. So I guess Lane Kiffin's not alone in this. And maybe it's not the College Football Playoff Committee saying, we're going to make you ineligible for the playoff, but it could be the NCAA says, guess what? You're playing an ineligible player by our rules. You found a way around it, and we can't stop you from doing it. But eventually, common sense is going to win out. We've already seen it with the nationwide injunction that was handed out in Colorado. That has now been scrapped, and you now have to have your own individual state-specific one. So I wonder how long it's going to take for these injunctions to get the stay and get overturned. And at that point, does the NCAA start vacating wins of, guess what? You played an ineligible player. That win doesn't count. That win doesn't count. And if it happens mid-season, the College Football Playoff Committee has to take that into account, don't they? So I don't know what the solution is here, but it all starts with these coaches. They should be standing up for what's right for the game instead of standing up what's right for them and their individual program.
Yeah, I've told this to Connor countless times. I mean, the root of all evil is the money in this case. The greed takes over in these conversations because that's what this is. It is a money-driven business, unfortunately. The amateurism is out the door. This is a semi-professional, if not a professional level of business for marketing and also the play on the field and on the court. I mean, you mentioned just there, like vacating wins. Go back to the Alabama situation last year. What, Charles Bediako? He played, 5-6 games, give or take. And then after his 10-day injunction, he was not allowed to play anymore. So at that point, they were thinking, what do you do with Alabama when they get to the NCAA tournament? Do they lower them in a seed or do they vacate the wins? What do they do? And I think if we see more and more of that, to your point, Jake, you will probably see, and if Ryan Day does this, if LSU does this with Lane Kiffin, you're probably going to see vacated wins off their schedule and then probably have to go off the resume of, instead of being 12-0, they're 9-0, or they vacate those wins, or they look at them as losses, one or the other.
I like that of just like, hey, if you play Daquan Wright for the first 3 games and then the injunction gets overturned, those 3 games, your win against Clemson or your win against Ole Miss doesn't count, right? We're not going to evaluate those in your resume. And even if you're not 9-3 at that point, if you go 9-0, I feel like that stacks up differently against other teams.
And it also validates your point, Jake, when we've had way back in time, don't do a top 25 until like week 6. So then, if you're going up against a top 5, top 10 matchup in week 2, like for example, Tennessee, Texas, say there's 2 NFL players on those teams that got waived and they play. Then you have the committee saying, do we vacate that for a win or a loss? And then you go into week 6 or week 7, then you have your top 25. So the top 5, top 15 games at the beginning of the season don't affect it at all.
Yeah, and I will stand by. The College Football Playoff Committee should not be doing weekly rankings late in the season because it boxes themselves into a corner. The AP poll, the media poll, I guess they can do what they want, but like the people who are actually making the decision don't need to be setting themselves up where they need to justify moving their rankings. We just need the best teams, right? And the issue with this solution is, like, even if you vacate the wins, it's not like the NCAA has the Men in Black neuralizer where it's like, look right here, those 3 games never happened. It's like people still watch those games happen, and there's going to be bias. Like, I know it's something in like courtrooms where it's like we ask the jury to strike that from the record, and like you do not use that in your what's the word, like when they're deliberations. Don't use that in your deliberations, but it's like once you heard it, it's not like you can just erase that from your mind. I don't know what the right solution to this is. All I know is that LSU, Will Wade, Lane Kiffin should not be doing this. It's bad. It's bad for sports. It's bad for the game. I did want to get Connor's rosy input on this because he's been in such a good mood this morning. I know this is something that Connor is 100% on board with.
Absolutely. And I just find it ironic that no, I don't. You know how I feel about this.
Yes.
I find it ironic, and I don't even know if ironic is the right word, but why is LSU so hell-bent on being the bad guys in this situation? Why is it Will Wade, who is quite literally building an NBA team? I mean, RJ Lewis hasn't played basketball in 2 years, and he's played for 2 NBA teams at this point.
Yep.
All you got to do is you got to find a judge who's biased enough to give you an injunction. And look, Kentucky's kind of battling this right now, not in the NBA sense, but Mark Mitchell, who is trying to exercise a 5th year of eligibility with the 5x5 is coming back. And I think he's going to be approved, but that's a completely different situation than what this is. I don't understand. Yes, it might give you the competitive advantage, but what happened to the respect of the game? What happened to we play inside the rules for the love of the game because we admire this sport and we're trying to make men? I understand, like Frazier says, it's basically a baby NFL now. It's a professional organization.
Yeah.
But whatever happened to we are trying to set these guys up for success, either if it's on the football field or whatever comes next. Now it's just about who can gather the most money and who can build the most competitive advantage on the field. And on some level in college football, it's always been that way. You know, let's not act like the SEC wasn't paying anyone behind the table for years now, but now it's legal. And now it's a matter of who can step out of line the furthest to get the competitive advantage. And it's frustrating to watch for sure.
Well, and I think the point that's been made this week that it's where I stand is there just needs to be a line between college football and professional football. And if you can go suit up for the Browns on Saturday in a preseason game and then head back to college the next day, what's to stop that line from becoming so blurry that there really isn't a difference? We can get to this on the other side. My big question is what happens to these players? Let's say that nothing gets overturned. Daquan Wright and Xavier Harris and whoever else, Jack Pyburn, all come back and they play a full season. What happens to them next? They've already been in the NFL draft process. Can they get drafted again? Like, can they go as an undrafted free agent? Here's how you stop it. The NFL says you get one shot at this. If you go back to college, you are not welcome to play in this league anymore. And I don't think they'll do it, but I think that's a way that they could stop. And we can get into that after this. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. Again, we are live at Titans training camp today. Final week of Titans training camp. Joint practice with the Bears coming up on Thursday before the preseason finale on Saturday evening at Nissan Stadium. We'll talk Titans later this hour as well. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. Jake Lyman, Nick Frazier, Connor Nute. Next man up, 1025 The Game. This Friday, come hang out with us at T-Line in West Nashville as we celebrate 102.5 The Game's 15th anniversary. Also, we have gifts that we will be giving away every hour starting at 6 a.m., including Preds tickets, Vandy tickets, concert tickets, and more. Plus, be sure to stop by T-Line and get signed up for a chance to win Nashville Predators season tickets. For more information, visit thegamenashville.com/birthdays, and we appreciate all of the sponsors of the Game birthday celebration who have been with 102.5 The Game since the very beginning. So excited for that on Friday. Today we are out here at Titans training camp live at Vanderbilt Health Football Center. Going to talk plenty of Titans coming up in the second half hour here in the 10 o'clock hour. But wanted to talk college football a little bit more with Daquan Wright and Xavier Harris returning to play at LSU after being in NFL training camps. And the idea I had is the NFL could really put a stop to this and say, you get one shot to stay in this league, right? You come, and if you ask the team to cut you so you can go back to college, which I thought Todd Monken had a great comment on that yesterday of like, man, what kind of world are we living in where this guy is fighting for a job on an NFL roster and asks to be cut to go back to college? I think the NFL could nip this in the bud and say, guess what? You asked to be cut to go back to college. It is a privilege to play in the NFL, and you are not welcome back. So you can go collect your NIL check next year and go play college football for an extra season if the courts allow you to. But guess what? You're not going to be allowed to play in the NFL. Maybe it's not a full-time ban, but maybe it's a year or two ban. And if the NFL doesn't like 24, 25-year-old rookies very much. So I wonder if the NFL could be the savior in this situation of saying, guess what? You leave us, you're not allowed back, at least not immediately.
Well, you make a good point there, Jake. If there is a ban involved of like a 2-year season or 2 seasons or some sort like that, let's use an example here. Let's say this were to take effect this year. Arch Manning, I'm just using the Titans as an example. Say the Titans are drafting for number 1 overall again, and Arch Manning's on the board, right? Let's say they draft Arch Manning. He's number 1 overall, but yet he has the opportunity to come back to Texas for one more season. He says, hey, I'm going to go back to Texas. But in his contract with the Tennessee Titans, since this whole thing has been going on recently, say the Titans have a stipulation in his contract like minor league baseball does for high schoolers. Say, or if you want to go back and play XYZ. They own the rights to that player. I could see the NFL in some case owning the rights to players that want to go back into college for another season or two. So when they're playing in the, SEC and it's Texas versus Tennessee and Arch Manning is having a great game and their scouts are out there thinking, man, I really want that guy. But wait a minute. Don't the Titans own the rights to him? I could see the NFL saying, hey, maybe yes, there's a 2-year ban, but when he's ready, he can come back and play for whatever team. I don't know. That's just me, though.
I mean, I guess I could see that aspect of it of why should the Browns be punished by this? Not that Daquan Wright was ever going to be a superstar, at least you don't think, but and if he was, he wouldn't have left, right? Like if he was going to be successful in the NFL, he probably wouldn't be going back. I just think that might be a way to make these kids think a second time about this and say, well, yeah, I could go back for, I don't know what Daquan Wright would be making to go back. 6 figures, $500,000, somewhat like, let's just say $500,000. And it's like, well, if I don't make the Browns roster, there's nothing guaranteed to me. But I got $500,000 guaranteed to go back to LSU. Maybe he thinks, though, well, guess what? Is that $500,000 going to be more worth it than what I could make being on a practice squad for the next 5 or 6 years and maybe working my way onto an active roster if the NFL says, hey, you've got a 2-year waiting period after you go back to college. And again, like, are teams going to want to sign a guy who's been out of football for 2 years or maybe goes and plays in the UFL or the CFL for 2 years? I don't know. But I do like your idea. It's like hockey a little bit of where Preds fans can go watch Michigan State this year and see a couple of their players playing for the Spartans that they know are going to be prospects in the future. I just think that college football already is kind of like the minor leagues, right? Like these guys usually come in ready to play immediately. You don't usually need the extra marination to head back to college for an extra year after you've already been drafted.
Yeah, Chase McCabe brought that up yesterday. We were just having a conversation in the hallway. I'll leave that for him to explain more on the hockey side of it all. But I just use baseball because I'm a big baseball fan. And
yeah,
I do think that there is a opportunity for the NFL to do that. And again, it's a multi-billion-dollar company. The reason why I use Arch Manning is because he is a marquee name. And if the NFL is wanting to be a marquee franchise, a marquee sporting, entertainment of it all, you got to make sure your top players that you're coming into your rookie year are available in some sense.
Well, we can use another Texas quarterback as a good example of this, like Quinn Ewers.
Yeah.
Quinn Ewers 2 years ago decided to come out of Texas. It was widely reported he had like a $4 million offer to transfer somewhere because Texas wanted to see what they had in Arch Manning. The calls were finally getting a little too loud for Arch to start. So he wasn't going to be the starting quarterback at Texas, but he had an opportunity to go somewhere else for like $4 million. Instead, he goes into the draft and he's a 7th round pick. I bet Quinn Ewers would have loved to go back on his draft commitment and say, hey, yeah, no, I'll take that $4 million now, actually, and I'll go back to Miami or LSU or wherever it was that was offering him that. He wasn't given that chance to do that. I just think it blurs the lines too much between college sports and pro sports, and you're going to have teams spending draft picks on players not knowing whether they're actually going to be able to be on your roster because it's like, oh, well, could they end up going back? I will say one thing. This should be a 1-year thing, right? Like because of the 5-and-5 eligibility, I would think that there wouldn't be judges siding with these players beyond this year, right? Because beyond this 2022 high school class, everybody's getting their 5 years, and there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Everybody is on the same level playing field, so I don't think that players are going to be allowed to come back to college. But for this year alone, it's a big enough issue that I think somebody has to step in and do something. And I think the NFL might be the only one that can actually make a meaningful difference here.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the closest thing to a somewhat of a U.S. governing body in some sense, because whatever they say kind of goes in a roundabout way, and kind of going back to the whole UFL point that you made just a second ago, if the NFL were to go with the minor league aspect of it all, if players go back to college, I think it's time for the UFL. They're probably salivating at the mouths thinking we need to have more expansion teams, one team for every NFL team. And if you draft a player, the rights go to that, certain NFL franchise. That player gets demoted to, XYZ UFL team. And then if they're ready enough, they can bring them up and use it as almost like a practice squad. Like you still have a practice squad in the NFL and then still use the UFL as an extension to that.
Yeah, I mean, you could turn it into a developmental league, right? Of a lot of these practice squad guys, like, yeah, they're helpful during the season, right? They play scout team and they'll get the game day activations, but they're also probably not playing as much as they need to in order to actually develop. So yeah, I mean, I like the idea of turning the UFL into a minor league and giving these guys who aren't on your 53 the opportunity to go get reps and go play actual football during the offseason to prepare for training camp. But we'll see how this all turns out. Of course it's LSU. It's just the one thing that I've taken from this of like Connor asked the question of why are they so hell-bent on being the villains? They all already are the villains, right? All of their major head coaches, Lane Kiffin, Will Wade, Kim Mulkey, Jay Johnson, all are already villains. So it's like they've got nothing left to lose. The college sports world is not going to think any less of them for doing this because they're already the villains. So I feel like that gives them the free rein to do whatever they want because they know that their reputation already is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, the FBI was involved at Ole Miss for bugging Lane Kiffin's office, right? Something along those lines.
Yeah, so, the FBI was involved with Will Wade, his first stint at LSU.
I mean, you're right. They just fit the villain narrative and might as well just continue with it.
That's what I'm saying. It's like, yeah, of course they're going to be the villains because everyone already thinks of them that way. So they, like Dan Lanning, I think is viewed as one of the good guys in college sports. And he turned down the Alabama job to stay at Oregon. And he comes out with the statement of, oh, this is bad for the game because he's got a reputation to uphold. Lane Kiffin knows he's one of the most hated men in college sports. So it's like, what difference does it make if I ruin college sports by bringing back these pro players? Because people already don't like me. It's not like my reputation is going to change in any way. Everybody's just like, oh, there goes Lane Kiffin again doing what he does. Whereas if, Dan Lanning might be an example. I'm trying to think of another like coach that everybody kind of rallies behind.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up because, like Nick Saban, he endorsed Lane Kiffin to go to LSU. It makes me wonder what is the perception of Nick Saban in this sense. Obviously, he's not in the current state of college football, but Kirk Herbstreit brought it up at the Rose Bowl last year. If there is a president of college football, it needs to be Nick Saban. I wonder how Saban, obviously, he's on the frame of mind saying, look, all these guys shouldn't be getting paid XYZ dollars. It's all about the player, not the actual money of it all. But I'm curious.
Yeah, it's this is going to be a big process as we go forward of how do you fix this, right? And I think the only answer is the only two answers are collective bargaining, where the players form a union and they negotiate what this is all going to look like moving forward. And once both sides agree to it, then there is rules that can't be overturned by any judge, right? Once if the players union and the schools agree to something, it's binding. You're good. Or if Congress intervenes and gives the NCAA and these conferences the ability to enforce their own rules, that can fix this. But until we get one of those, it's just going to continue to be chaos.
Yeah, I mean, that's college football. And I think a lot of people enjoy the chaos of college football in that sense. But to your point, though, Jake, yeah, there has to be some form of stability. And right now, we're just not going to get that, I'd say, for the next 4 years, give or take. I mean, we all know the legal battles, they continue to prolong itself because of just what goes into it at all. But it's just going to take some time, unfortunately.
615-737-1025 is the phone number. We'll take your thoughts on this. If you have any, on our phone and text line driven by Wilson County Hyundai.com. Titans are on the practice field. We will talk Titans again, not open to the fans today, so can't give you updates before practice wraps up. But I did want to get into some of the concerns going on with the Titans coming out of that preseason game with Seattle. We talked a lot about the defense, talked a lot about Cam Ward yesterday. We'll get into that more. And the offensive line, the group that we thought was going to be the most concerning has kind of fallen onto the back burner. We can get into that later in the show as well. 615-737-1025. Jake Lyman, Nick Frazier, Connor Nute, next man up, 1025 The Game. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman, Nick Frazier, Connor Nute with you. We are live at Titans training camp today. Practice getting underway shortly. And again, not open to the fans. Can't give you live updates, but we will be able to on Thursday for the joint practice with the Bears. We'll be out here again at 9 a.m. Let's go to the phone lines here, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Bear has called in. Bear, thanks for calling. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, Jake, Nick, Connor. First I want to say, Connor, his rant earlier about Vandy. Yeah, I see what he's saying, but you about him being concerned about
Jared Curtis.
Curtis. Yeah, I was gonna say Frazier. Yeah, Curtis. Possibly getting discouraged and want to leave. You know, that's just a chance you got to take, man. You can't let these teams, dictate the school. You know what I'm saying? They still need to be the head coach. You still need to be a arc of leadership. So you just have to take your chance. You just can't let them hold the team hostage. And also, as far as players getting to leave every year, you got to remember now, scholarships is yearly. Like in real life, man, even though good players stay, they can come to you after season. Hey guys, we're not gonna need you next year. So. And it's always been that way forever. So, I guess it should be equal. Maybe both parties should get together, and when they decide, hey, we're going to stick together, then you stuck for that year, and then you just revisit it every year with every player. And I wanted to say what you were saying earlier with not a fan of Congress stepping in and having any say over anything that's not a government or state type organization, man. I think it's free market society, man. I would hate for, Congress to come in and tell me how much money I can make. You know what I'm saying? I just don't agree with that. And I just feel like, if a team or if a school wants to pay you, they can pay you. And if they don't, they don't. We should live in a capitalistic free market society. It's just the way it should be. They should pay what they want to pay in it. And if they think you're worth it, they can pay it. If they don't, you can move on to somewhere else. And as far as oh man, I kind of forgot my point because I was kind of getting into. But I guess I'll just let that wrap it up. I mean, I had some other thoughts, but it kind of escaping right now. But I love the show, guys, and carry on.
Thanks for the call, Bear. We appreciate it. On the Jared Curtis front, I agree with you that Clark Lee. If you listen to him talk about the quarterbacks, you can tell that he has a long-term plan for what this is supposed to look like for Jared Curtis. So while I was surprised this morning that it was Blaise Berlowitz, I think they know what is going to be the best long-term action for Jared Curtis. And I'm sure there's conversations going on with Jared behind the scenes of, hey, you're going to play, you're going to get your opportunities, and I think they'll know when they need to put him in to obviously make sure that he's not going to hit the portal at the end of this year. On the other side of it, talking about congressional intervention, I think you need congressional intervention just for the ability of the NCAA and the conferences to enforce their own rules. Like that is something that has to get done because right now, everything that these governing bodies do can be challenged at any level. And when you find a friendly judge, pretty much any decision they make can get overturned. For some reason, except for the suspension of Arian Carter. It's like we're getting all these stupid, chaotic repays a couple $100 flight and he can't play for the first 2 weeks of the season. It's stupid. But you need to find a way for these governing bodies to be able to enforce their own rules without constantly being overturned by the judicial system. But I do agree with what Bear said of I don't know if Congress is going to be able to dictate how much money a player is going to make. I think eventually that has to come from collective bargaining, right? Like I think that's where the NIL has to be reined in is eventually I think you might have to have a players union and have some sort of collective bargaining between the players and the schools on what the market is going to look like.
I mean, we're approaching baby NFL. That's what we're doing right now. It's unfortunate because college football and college sports in general are a product that is so held dear to the American people, especially in this region. But we're approaching wild, wild west. Not that we're already not in there. We're truly in the deep. And honestly, I don't know if there's light at the end of the tunnel right now. And I'm not trying to fearmonger anyone, but it seems like there's something new and crazy coming out every single day. And now we're battling, hey, NFL players can come back to college. So I think there needs to be some higher support. I think that the NCAA needs to seek government not protection, but help. And honestly, the fact that they were able to win that case the other day on the class of 2022 athletes being ruled ineligible is a huge win for them. It's starting to show that the American government is willing to make the right moves, and the higher courts at least. But you're always apparently going to have some crooked judge in the state of Louisiana that's going to approve everything and give them a injunction. It's disheartening, and I don't honestly see how we're going to get out of this situation.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the right analogy would be for this, but the NCAA, it's like you're trying to stop somebody from getting somewhere. Like I don't know, you're trying to stop somebody from getting past you, and the NCAA's only way to do it is just putting up their hand and saying, "Stop! Don't go past me." And it's like, well, if you got no way to enforce it, nobody's going to fear you. Nobody's going to respect you, and that's the issue right now. Is the NCAA, yes, for a long time has been the villain in college sports, and I don't think anyone would disagree with that. But right now, they're getting pushed around by these friendly judges across the country that are just overturning every one of their decisions. And until you get some congressional intervention, I just think you're going to continue to see situations like this that just lack complete common sense, where everybody in sports would say it makes no sense that somebody who declared for the draft, ran out of eligibility, and has suited up in games for an NFL team should be able to return to college. But because one judge thinks that there's legal backing to it and can overturn it, then guess what? It's going to happen. If you get some congressional intervention, you can prevent situations like this.
So what you're saying is you and I should go and try and play football for LSU, and it'll probably be okay.
See, I don't know if Lane Kiffin wants me on that team. I was a half decent quarterback on my sixth grade Pee Wee team, but outside of that, I don't think I would bring much of a resume to Lane Kiffin and the Bayou Bengals.
That's all right. We'll go to Ole Miss. We'll be better there.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, we can do Ole Miss. Maybe James Franklin has a spot on the roster for me.
Yeah, but I don't want to play. I just want to walk out to Enter Sandman, and then I'll go back to the locker room.
Agreed. Yeah, I would say I probably wouldn't last more than a play playing in college football. So, but I mean, we've got as much legal backing to go back and play college football as anybody does these days. So we will see how this turns out. I mean, I still, as I said with the Sorsby situation a few months ago, I believe in common sense to win out at some point. And it did with the Sorsby situation. I think eventually common sense is going to win out. Now, does that happen in the next 13 to 12 days before, less than that, 11 days before LSU suits up against Clemson? Maybe not. I think that might be a stretch, but I don't think that this is going to be something that lasts the entire year. I think eventually these players are going to be kicked back out of college sports. And then the question just becomes, what happens next? Is any NFL team going to touch these guys after they ask their team to cut them so they could go back to college? I don't know, but this is going to be this saga is not going to stop until we get some intervention from Congress, which I believe, Connor, I don't know if you know, the next time they can vote is like early September 7th, I think, is like the next time Congress is back in session.
I'd have to do some research on that, but yeah,
I feel like I saw that, but it's at least a couple of weeks away.
Yeah, but if they're kicked to the curb from college football, I think this is going to be like a Bediako situation where they get to play for a couple weeks, maybe at most, and then they're kicked to the curb. And then after that, it's like a good neighbor. We'll figure out which insurance firm they decide to work for.
That's true. They need indeed. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. We'd love to hear from you. Our phone and text lines driven by Wilson County Hyundai, online at wilsoncountyhyundai.com. Let's talk Titans. Let's get back into the two-tone blue. some concerns, obviously, coming out of Sunday's preseason game against the Seahawks. What are your biggest ones? We'll talk about that coming up at the top of the hour. And I want to talk about Carnell Tate. I think this is a big week for the Titans' number 4 overall pick. We'll do that next. Jake Lyman, Connor Nute, next man up here on 102.5 The Game. Next man up, 102.5 The Game, Jake Lyman. Connor Nute, Nick Frazier will rejoin us shortly. We are live at Vanderbilt Health Football Center. Titans practice today, gearing up for the Chicago Bears coming to town on Thursday. Joint practice here at Vanderbilt Health Football Center, and then the preseason finale on Saturday. It's going to be a busy week. I mean, practice today, joint practice Thursday, preseason Saturday, and then cut down day on Sunday. So we will have you covered all week long here on 102.5 The Game. Before we get into a big picture conversation I wanted to have, we'll do that at 11 on the biggest concerns you have about the Titans right now heading towards the season, and maybe one that's been downgraded a little bit from what we thought at the beginning of training camp. I did want to talk about Carnell Tate here for a couple of seconds. It was a quiet week for him last week. He had the big catch last Monday at the end of practice and took a big hit from Kevin Winston, and then didn't practice on Wednesday, was really not the same guy Friday, still does not have a catch in the preseason. Connor, what's your concern level right now around Carnell Tate? Again, no catches on 5 targets through his first 2 preseason games. And after a really strong start to camp, you've seen it taper off a little bit over the last few practices.
He is further down on my list of concerns than a lot of other things.
I would agree with that.
I will say that I'm not overly concerned about it. You know, that play the other night, you get 2 hands on the ball, you got to catch that ball. There's no way around that, especially, look, it wasn't the best ball thrown of all time, but it was a catchable ball. No. It was a catchable ball, so you've got to make that play. But you know, my concern of Carnell Tate, it is a little bit disheartening to see him not dominate out there against backups. But I think you and I talked about this yesterday. We take it back to Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase threw 4 preseason games, 1 catch for 16 yards. And the same conversations were being had about him. Was he worth the hype? Did you take him too high in the first round? Is he actually going to be an impact player for the Bengals? And I would say he turned out pretty okay. So, look, I'm not saying Carnell Tate is going to turn into Jamar Chase. I would expect a little bit of a drop-off there, if we're being honest. But, you know, my concern for Carnell Tate right now is very low on the list of concerns for the Titans.
I 100% agree. I think as a rookie, no matter where you're picked as a rookie, there's always going to be ups and downs as you go through it. I mean, these rookies, they don't get a break. I mean, last year, they're gearing up through fall camp. They play a full college football season. For a guy like Carnell Tate, you're playing deep into January. Or I guess not deep into January. They lost in the quarterfinals, but like into January. And then you're immediately into draft process. You're into OTAs. You're into training camp, and then you go. There's going to be ups and downs. I agree with you. Like the Jamar Chase thing we mentioned, Chad, our engineer, just mentioned too. It's like, I'm old enough to remember when the preseason talk was Jamar Chase couldn't catch a pro-sized football. I think Carnell Tate is going to be okay. But I do think this is an important week for him to show that there is going to be a bounce back factor for him of a couple down practices, still hasn't had a catch in a preseason game. You'd like to see him today, Thursday, and into the preseason game on Saturday, finish training camp strong and head into the regular season with some momentum, because we do know, based on what we've seen in practice and what Robert Saleh said, it's like, hey, when it's time to go, we'll scheme the rock to Carnell Tate. He's going to be a big part of this offense, and you'd like to see him firing on all cylinders heading towards the Jets game.
I am I think in the rare case of today, I think I'm a more positive person on the outlook of the Titans than a lot of people are. I talked about this on my show yesterday. We need to find a way to stick in the middle, because Titans fandom is like a swinging pendulum. Yep. You swing too far left one way and everyone is getting fired and you're going 0-17. But if you swing too far the other way, the Titans are going undefeated, you're winning the Super Bowl. Find a way in the middle. Obviously, it hasn't looked great through 2 preseason games, but you know how many quarters they've played of the 6? 2, if even all of that. And no, it hasn't looked great there, but you cannot make a final judgment on the preseason. That goes for Cam Ward, that goes for Carnell Tate, that goes for the defense, that goes for every single player out there. Has it looked encouraging? Absolutely not. Am I ready to full on say this is going to be an absolute dumpster fire of a season just because of what I've seen in 2 quarters of 2 preseason games? No. I mean, I think people are too quick to assume that Cam Ward is a bust. I've seen a lot of texts and a lot of tweets today saying he is the worst pick since Jamarcus Russell.
I was about to bring that one up. Did you see it? That was hilarious on the text line.
I
We
don't-
got a text earlier saying that, is it fair to say Cam Ward is the biggest bust since Jamarcus Russell? And I responded to him and said, Jamarcus Russell completed 52% of his passes and had more interceptions and touchdowns in his career, including his final season where he had 3 touchdowns and 11 picks. Let's just slow our roll a little bit. I'm with you, Connor. After the blue and white scrimmage, Titans Twitter was ready to fit Cam Ward for his gold jacket because he had a good day. And coming off of, again, a very discouraging first 2 preseason games, people are ready to toss him to the side. It's somewhere in the middle, right? It hasn't been perfect. I would say it's been disappointing overall. Uninspiring was the word that Dan Orlovsky used that I think is good. But again, we live and die with every data point way too much. You've got to take it all in totality. And then when you get to the regular season, those are the games that really matter. And we're going to find out what Cam Ward is, what this defense is, what Carnell Tate is. That's when we're really going to find out about this team, even if the results we've seen so far are disappointing.
Yeah, 100%. And I don't think the Titans even consider moving off of Cam Ward this year. He's going to be the quarterback heading into a new stadium. I promise you. Because when you take a quarterback first overall, you give them every single opportunity and then some to prove that they are the face of the franchise because of how much you invested into that pick. And we can sit back and play revisionist history and complain about, well, why didn't they take the alleged Giants deal all we want? Fact of the matter is they didn't. Fact of the matter is they've built pieces around him. They've got a new coordinator, a new system, new receivers for him to look for. And all of that is built to help him. You're not going to get the final result in the preseason. We haven't even gotten to week 1 yet, and people are already proclaiming the season a failure. Give it time. You don't have to ride with the emotional waves that come with the preseason. It's overreaction season. I get it. But when we get to the regular season, we're going to find out so much more about this team. And I wouldn't even say we're going to find out everything about the Titans in week 1 against the Jets. Give it to the middle of the season before you make a final judgment on what this team actually is. That's my soapbox for the day.
No, I'm with you. I think everybody, it feels like they need to know right now, one way or the other. Are the Titans going to be good? Are the Titans going to be bad? Is Cam Ward a bust? Is Cam Ward a franchise quarterback? The truth is nobody knows. Absolutely nobody knows. And I'm with you. I think if Cam Ward is not starting week 1 in the new stadium, he had an absolute disaster of a season, right? Like a season like we just talked about with Jamarcus Russell, where he plays 7 games and has 3 touchdowns and 11 picks. That's the type of season it would take for Cam Ward to not be the starter next year. Because again, if Cam Ward's not the guy, a lot of people are losing their jobs. And I know that's what some people out there might be calling for, but they're going to give Cam Ward every single opportunity to prove he's the guy before moving on. And that likely means even if he has a mediocre season this year, they're still going to give him 2027 to try and develop.
And this isn't the Cam Do show. This is just the truth. It's reality. No one is getting fired off of the preseason.
I love how it's becoming Cam, like you're a Cam Do or a Cam Boy or whatever it is, like that people are calling it. Like you're being way too optimistic by saying that the second-year quarterback isn't a bust before he's played his first snap of the regular season yet. Like that's being too optimistic, is saying that he's not a bust before he's even started his second season. It's hilarious. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. We'd love to hear from you. Again, our phone line's driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. But Cam Ward, surely, based on what you've seen, is a big concern right now heading into the season. Doesn't mean he's a bust. Doesn't mean it's not going to work out for him. But from what you've seen, I think you can be a little bit discouraged, a little bit disappointed, and we'll get into that coming up next. What are some of your biggest concerns as we head towards the final week of training camp here? There's one that we talked about a ton heading into the season, the offensive line. I got to say, my question is, are we talking less about the offensive line because other aspects of the team aren't very good, or has the offensive line actually been better than expectations? We'll do that coming up next. Nick Frazier will rejoin us as well. 615-737-1025. Next man up. You're on 1025 The Game. Final hour on this Tuesday. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman live from Vanderbilt Health Football Center. Nick Frazier, Connor Nute back at our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Titans on the practice field this morning. Again, can't give you updates until practice ends. We will see. I doubt we'll be on the air still when practice wraps up, but keep it tuned right here throughout the day. Chasing Big Joe DVD. I'm sure we'll have plenty of reaction to what happens today, leading into Thursday's joint practice with the Chicago Bears. So I asked the question heading to break. Biggest concerns with this Titans team. And we talked ad nauseum, so much that it was probably too much during the offseason about the offensive line and how worried we were about it. Are we talking less about the offensive line right now because they actually have been that much better than expectations? Or are we just not talking about them because they haven't been the worst of the things that we've seen so far in the preseason and training camp with how the secondary has performed and a lot of the conversation around Cam Ward and the passing game as well?
I think that's the big one there for me, Jake, is the second part you mentioned. Because, yes, Cam Ward plays a factor into how the offensive line plays, but when you continue to drag out a play, and Connor and I mentioned this last night, it was like a second down, right? And he rolled out to the right and he got 3 yards to Elk Manor. Yeah, he got the play completed, but at the same time, when the play's not there, throw it away. It just makes your offensive line work less to where they can kind of pick and choose their battles further down the line in the game. So I'd go lean more in the second part of what you said rather than the first part. And to your I guess question earlier, what is the biggest concern? I was thinking anything with a blue jersey right now. I mean, that's the biggest concern for me.
And all the whole team?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Nick Frazier must have taken some of the coffee Connor Nute was drinking this morning.
I don't drink coffee, pal.
How about my second cup? The Connor Nute
There
coffee.
you go. There you go.
D-Mace is calling me NC right now. Negative Connor. So maybe that'll be my alter ego moving forward.
Negative Connie.
God.
We haven't called you Kitty Cat Connie as much since the initiation of that. Was that Dustin from Hopkinsville or Wes from Hermitage who came up with that?
It was both. Which means my plan was working until you brought it back up. So thanks.
I'm going to say my biggest concern right now is the starting secondary. And the offensive line has not been great. We can get more into that in a second, but I just think on paper, they were supposed to be better than they have been, right? Like Amani Hooker has proven to be a good pro. And I know last year was a down year for him, but he has proven to be a good professional safety. Kevin Winston, from what we've seen in practice, he's got all of the tools out there. I think the mental side is still lacking a little bit, and we saw that on Sunday night where the blown coverage, again, I don't know exactly what play was called defensively, so I don't know if it was on Winston or if it was on Taylor. It looked like it was on Winston, and that's not the first time we've seen him kind of looked a little lost in coverage. That was an issue last year after he recovered from the knee injury. The cornerbacks, Cordell Flott gave up 6 catches on 6 targets against Curtis Rourke 2 weeks ago. So I would say the starting secondary was not super high on my list of concerns heading into training camp, and it might be number 1 right now heading into the final week of training camp.
I'm just going to go back to what I said in the spring when I mentioned you and Connor. These 2 signings reminded me of, and Alontae Taylor doesn't really fit into this narrative, but more for Cordell Flott, the Chidobe Awuzie / L'Jarius Sneed signings. You give a lot of money to this, cornerback in this case. Yes, the upside is that he's young and he has room to grow, but you got to give that type of money to proven talent. That's my big issue I have with the signing. He's not yet a proven talent. So if he ends up not having a really good start to the season, I mean, right now in the preseason, he's been playing every game and it just hasn't been looking great for him, but he's got to show signs of improvement quickly before they go into week 1 against the Jets. So, I mean, that's only 1 week, and that's against Chicago this Saturday.
Yeah, I think we had high expectations for Cordell Flott because, again, he was coming off the best year of his professional career, and he was in the room with Brian Daboll in New York. And it's like, Daboll, if he didn't believe in the player, I'm sure that was the first conversation when they were like, hey, do we want to negotiate with Cordell Flott? Ask Brian Daboll, what are your thoughts on him? And you give him $45 million, feels like it was a pretty good conversation about what Cordell Flott could bring to this team. I don't think it's time to panic on anything yet, but I would say my biggest concern probably is that starting secondary. Number 2 for me is probably the downfield passing game right now. I mean, we saw the stats yesterday of Cam Ward is one of 2 quarterbacks in the preseason to not complete a pass 10 yards or more down the field so far through 2 games. It's my 2 guys. Cam Ward here and Tyrod Taylor for the Packers, who I wanted Tyrod to come in and back up Cam last year. Anyway, I am a little bit worried because you brought in Carnell Tate to be a downfield threat for you, and you haven't been able to hook up. Again, not panic time. We just said it in the last segment that you need to see it when the regular season starts and when the real bullets start flying. But I would say the lack of an ability to connect downfield has been probably my second biggest concern throughout training camp in the preseason so far.
Yeah, and to expand on that from my end of it, if you're not going to game plan for a guy like Carnell Tate, and I mentioned this with Connor last night on the 6, if you're not going to game plan for Carnell Tate, why play him through the preseason if you're wanting to not risk to get him hurt to begin the season in general? So just don't play him, period. And I know you want to build chemistry with some of your starters, but if he's only getting 1 to 2 targets per preseason game, then what are we doing here? Like, I just don't understand it.
Yeah, and I mean, they said they're not scheming for him, and for Cam, it's just you got to go to the open receiver. And I watched somebody cut up all of Carnell Tate's routes from Sunday night, and he wasn't creating a whole lot of separation, which I think that's what has people concerned about Carnell Tate is you're facing backups. You were the 4th overall pick and you're not consistently creating separation. Like, it's one thing if Cam Ward just doesn't see you, right? And he missed it and he doesn't find you. But outside of a play or 2 here and there, it's not like you were looking at Carnell Tate running wide open against backups. So my question with those 2 concerns I have, right? Secondary and the downfield passing game. And I guess they kind of clash a little bit because if one is succeeding, the other isn't in practice. But we have seen both of those groups have success at times throughout training camp. Like, Cam Ward has hit Carnell Tate deep for big throws, and they've been able to connect a few times. The secondary, I thought Cordell Flott had a pretty good start to training camp, and you didn't really notice him starting to struggle until San Francisco. Alontae Taylor has had some really good moments too. I am wondering why none of that has translated from the practice field to the preseason game so far. Is it just neither aspect is very good, and that's why they're competitive with each other in practice, and when they face somebody else, they struggle? I don't know. I'm wondering why we've seen success for both of those groups in practice that just hasn't been able to click when they've gotten into the preseason games.
Well, I mentioned this as well, is that to Connor before, it's that in those joint practices, it's a tempered environment. Coaches are understanding what part of the script of their playbook they want to run. They get to blow the whistle whenever they want. They want to see this look. They want to see that look. They want this wide receiver to run this route. It's all controlled. Once you get into a in-game environment for the preseason, that's where I think a lot of people can base their values of what these players are worth going into the season. That's why I'm in the camp of I value the preseason game over joint practices. Some may say differently, which is fine. But I just think that there's 2 ways to look at it. There's 2 lenses. If you're looking through the binoculars, one part of the binocular is looking at joint practice. The other binocular is looking at the preseason. So, I mean, it's just how you look at it. And also, too, Jake, when you look at these 3 preseason games, all 3 of these teams are playoff teams. That's something else you got to put in consideration. The Titans are not a playoff team. So the fact that Seattle's backups, San Francisco's backups are seeing success, sure, it might be a little bit concerning for the starters on this roster, but at the same time, that's what you're going up against. You're going up against playoff caliber second stringers.
Right. And you mentioned the dichotomy of, like, what do you value more, the joint practice or the preseason? I said this yesterday, and it's so hard to separate because it's like, you got to give the Titans props for competing well against the Super Bowl champions and their starters in the joint practice. Like, that was the story coming out of joint practice on Friday, was the Titans stood up, maybe even won the day against the defending Super Bowl champs. But then you face their backups and you're down 16-3 when your starters leave the game. Like, you can't ignore either of them, but it's just, I don't know which one you value more when you're looking at the storylines around this team.
Yeah, just also to the Seattle preseason game, and no slouch to Robert Saleh at all. But when Fox was showing, little snippets of Mike McDonald on the sideline, that guy was coaching to the very end. And I'm not saying Robert Saleh wasn't. I'm just saying in general that there's a difference to that. And I think when you practice how you play it translates. And I'm not saying the Titans are not practicing joint practices to the full degree. I just think there's some disconnect there where it's not translating to the field.
615-737-1025 is the phone number. Our phone and text line driven by Wilson County Hyundai, online at wilsoncountyhyundai.com. We'll take your thoughts. What are your three biggest concerns about the Titans as we head into the final week of training camp? We've talked about the secondary. We've talked about the downfield passing game. The offensive line obviously still is a concern. But we'll touch more on the offensive front coming up next and what we saw on Sunday against Seattle. And also some more texts on Cam Ward, because we're getting a text here about we watched Cam last year. He sucks. Like, why are people not allowed to get better? Like, that's my big question when it's like, he sucks, he's a bust. Are people not allowed to get better? That's the big thing for me. You look at these quarterbacks around the league right now that are having these resurgences. Daniel Jones with the Colts last year had them in position to be a playoff team after being thrown out the window by the Giants. You got Baker Mayfield, who's turned himself into a playoff quarterback with the Buccaneers after being thrown aside by three different teams. Sam Darnold, same thing, just won a Super Bowl after being called a bust for years. That doesn't mean that's what Cam Ward's going to be, right? That does not mean Cam Ward is going to turn into a Super Bowl winning quarterback or somebody in the MVP conversation, but he's allowed to get better. He is allowed to improve, and writing him off now serves absolutely no purpose. I just don't understand it.
I mean, yeah. Hopefully, I'm not sounding that way at all. But
No. I'm going at the text line, and we've got some comments on the YouTube chat.
Sure. I mean, you're right. There is room to grow, and I mean that's what it's there for. And this is something else that I brought up before in these airwaves. Just treat this, and again, this is not what Titans fans want to hear. For Cam Ward's sake, treat this like your rookie year again. And the reason why I bring that up is I know it's not what you want to hear, Jake. I know. I know.
People don't like that, and I don't think you can say it's like his rookie year. He played 16 games last year. All of those count.
I know.
But I do think you're right in that he needs to be given time to develop, right?
Spot on. And that's why, like, I mentioned last season you have Brian Callahan, Nick Holtz, Bo Hardigree, Mike McCoy. There's 4 names right there that were in Cam Ward's ear all season long until they departed from the franchise. Then now you only have one voice of mouth, which seems to be Brian Daboll. And in that case, I feel like it's Cam, in that preseason game, I feel like he didn't want to really go off script. Like, there were a lot of times where he targeted Wan'Dale Robinson on the first read that Connor pointed out last night on the 6th. And I think there was just more of needing to go through your read progressions. And I think he was so afraid to go off script to go to your next progression after the first one that it just didn't seem to pan out. So I think for Cam's sake, just understand the playbook on paper and just slowly apply it to the field. And I think he's doing that. It's just not as fast as what the fan base wants it to be.
Right. It's a microwave society now. And it's like, if he's not good right now, he's never going to be good. Zang Gang in the YouTube chat is trying to go after, like, Daniel Jones was good enough to get a massive contract. When did he get that massive contract? After year 4, right? Like, these guys are going to get given time to develop. Like, you're making these decisions after 1 year, where, by the way, he improved steadily throughout the season. Like, the last 8 weeks, he had 10 touchdowns and 1 interception. People are writing him off after 1 season and 2 bad preseason quarters. It's just, I'm not saying Cam Ward's going to be the franchise quarterback. Based on what we've seen, I think everyone has a right to be disappointed and concerned about what they've seen. But you have no idea what he's going to be long-term based on what we've seen so far.
Yeah, only time will tell. And I think what the Titans did this past offseason, grabbing guys like Wan'Dale Robinson, getting Calvin Ridley back on a team-friendly deal, and then, still continuing that relationship with guys like Elk Eyman or Tim DK, and even in this case, Gunnar Helm. You have a young core there, minus a guy like Calvin Ridley, where you can build around Cam Ward. Now, back to the initial point to the beginning of this conversation, what is a concern? I'm still on the verge of saying the offensive line has to improve, because if you have a solid offensive line, that's where Cam's going to be able to develop and see the pocket a little bit more cleanly. But again, it's up to him as well to understand how long he can hold on to the football.
615-737-1025 is the phone number. We will talk offensive line coming up next, and we'll continue to take your thoughts. What concerns you about the Titans heading towards the season? Jake Lyman, Nick Frazier, Connor Nute, next man up here on 1025 The Game. Next man up, 1025 The Game. Jake Lyman, Nick Frazier, Connor Nute. Titans on the practice field this morning. Again, not open to the fans. We'll give you updates later on. Again, I don't think they'll be done with practice by the time we're off the air, but make sure to keep it tuned right here throughout the day. Plenty of analysis from Chasing Big Joe and DVD coming up later on. And we will also speak with Truman Jones coming up during Chasing Big Joe. He had a sack and a half back on Sunday night against Seattle. He is a Harvard man, guys. Did you know this, that Truman Jones played at Harvard?
No.
Yeah, I did not know that either. Also, a high school lacrosse player, too. So we're going to talk with Truman Jones coming up after practice ends. Likely will be during the Chasing Big Joe show, but excited for that. All right, we're going through the biggest concerns for the Titans as we head into the final week of training camp. And we've talked about the secondary, and I'm saying the downfield passing game, but you could just say Cam Ward, right? Like the secondary and Cam Ward, I think, are your top two concerns. The offensive line has slid under the radar. And I do wonder again, is it just that the other two aspects have been that bad that we're not talking about the offensive line, or have they actually been better than expected? I think it's probably a little bit of both. The one thing that did concern me on Sunday was you had some short yardage situations. The 4th and 1 stands out to me where it's your ones against their twos, and you couldn't get enough push to get that first down. That was one play that concerned me. But I will say, overall, the pass protection for the first string offensive line has been decent for Cam Ward. And I feel like he hasn't been running for his life nearly as much as we expected him to heading into training camp.
Yeah, that offensive line is slowly coming together in some cases. I still think there needs be a little bit more of a upfront push in the run game, like you alluded to on that 4th and 1 there. But because like for me, if the Titans are going to use a running back room of Tony Pollard, Tajay Spears, for me, I still think Julius Chestnut is running back 2 on this roster right now from what I've seen on the field. I do, genuinely. The reason why I say that, Jake, and I'm not trying to go too off script here, but Julius Chestnut can run the football, run it efficiently in that case. He can play special teams, and he can pass block. Right now, in my case, Tajay Spears, Nick Singleton, and you don't want to put Tony Pollard out there to pass block. So
we know Singleton's not great at pass blocking right now after his performance in San Francisco.
And I understand he's a rookie, but like if you're going to have running backs to be in pass pro, you're going to have somebody that can do that efficiently. And Julius Chestnut's one of those running backs that can do so.
Yeah, I mean, Chestnut, he's the preseason guy, right? Like, was it you guys talking, or no, maybe it was Robbie and Joe saying Chestnut deserves to go in the preseason Hall of Fame. And he does every single year. He makes plays in the preseason. I think he's definitely in the conversation to make the roster, but I don't think that he's ever going to be a guy who gets consistent carries on offense. Like if he makes the team, it's going to be because he improved on special teams. And he can be a reliable 4th option if you get a whole bunch of injuries. But I think it's going to be Pollard, it's going to be Spears, it's going to be Singleton. And then you're debating whether it's Mullings, Chestnut, Michael Carter for that last spot on the roster.
Yeah, Mullings, haven't seen much out of him this preseason. I think by default, I can't add him to that running back room. Michael Carter, Connor said it best. I mean, he can allude to it. Michael Carter hasn't done much at all, for me, that is. But we were both on the same page with that as well. To me, that 4th spot's Julius Chestnut's to lose. He is so efficient on the field. He's able to be a special teams, not guru, but be a special teams factor for a guy like Bones Fossil. And nonetheless, for special teams, Bones Fossil loves those multifaceted players that can do everything. Like, prime example, Chim DK. Kick and punt return, along with playing on the offensive side of the football. So there is a reason for a guy like Julius Chestnut to make this roster and stay here for a good time.
I mean, I think everybody is going to probably assume that Chestnut and Kinsey will be around in some form or fashion, right? Like Chestnut and Kinsey, they're the cockroaches. You just can't get rid of them. I would assume they're going to end up on the practice squad. But yeah, I think with the running back room, at the very least, you have options, right? Like there's no lack of options for them. That might be one of the more interesting decisions that they have to make later on this week. With the Titans and the offensive line specifically, like I think Carmona has been better than we expect him to be. I will say J.C. Latham has turned from a pretty massive concern heading into the year to I feel pretty good about J.C. Latham through the first month of training camp, and as we get closer to the end of the preseason, I feel like J.C. Latham has everybody feeling cautiously optimistic that he's finally ready to take this step forward.
Is it that, or is it more of he hasn't been quite tested throughout the preseason?
And that's true too. But the joint practice against the 49ers, which was by almost all accounts a disaster for the Titans, whether you were talking about the performance of the defense, the way the offense performed, the brawls, everything. The one thing everybody came out of there saying is a positive for the Titans was J.C. Latham's maybe his best practice ever as a Titan. So you're facing the ones there with San Francisco. I didn't see much about what he looked like last week against Seattle, but I do think that not hearing a bunch about JC Latham is probably a good thing, because if you're hearing a bunch about JC Latham, it's probably because he's getting beat all over the place.
That's true. And as you know, Joe Dubin said on these airwaves, just be serviceable. And same thing goes for Dan Moore Jr. on the opposite side of the offensive line. Just be serviceable. And I'm kind of right there with you. I haven't heard much from Dan Moore Jr. at all.
Yeah, well, Dan Moore for sure. Dan Moore, I don't want to hear about him, right? Like you're right. He needs to just be serviceable, be somebody that you don't look at as a massive liability on the left side of that line. With JC Latham, I think you want somebody who's a little bit more than serviceable. You picked him 7th overall. I know it's been disappointing the first 2 years, but I think you've seen from Latham in the run game, especially, he's moving people. The pass protection has always been the spot that you were a little worried about with him. And he's got to prove once you get to the regular season that he can be that guy. But I do think that overall the offensive line still a big concern when you look at this roster. But I would say I feel better about it right now than I did 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, and another thing that the offensive line maybe can improve on, maybe it was just, a one-off, but when Tajay Spears is in the backfield, kind of going back to run efficiency, and they're trying to run him in between the tackles, and I'm in the boat of, I don't know if he is a true ground and pound running back. He's just that scat back that you look at out of the flats for a screenplay or just a check down in some cases. But there has to be a little bit more push from the offensive line. I know there were the backups that were in the second half when Spears kind of got in the game a little bit against Seattle, but either the pad level's got to get lower or they just have to get a better push off the ball because Spears went nowhere.
Well, I will say, like, the 4th and 1 with the ones out there, that's probably a sneak situation, but you're not running a quarterback sneak in the preseason. That would just be stupid. Like, you're not going to risk your quarterback diving into a pile of bodies in a preseason game. So I will say that, but when it's your ones against their twos and you need 1 yard, you should be able to create enough push to get 1 yard. So that, I will say, out of the offensive line's performance, that's the one thing that concerned me from Sunday night. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. Titans are on the practice field right now. Again, we will give you updates once practice wraps up. We got a lot to get into in the last 30 minutes. We'll keep talking Titans. I did want to get Nick Frazier's thoughts on NSC after another big win over the weekend. Best start in MLS history. Is that right, Nick?
First 21 games, they have the most points in MLS history with 49.
Wow.
So, yeah, they're –
wow.
Look, just a little teaser to what we'll talk about in a little bit. To score 2 goals in a minute and a half, separating to win 3-2 against Columbus.
Yeah.
That's what a championship team does.
Yes, and we will we'll talk about them before the show wraps up as well. 615-737-1025. Jake Lyman, Nick Frazier, Connor Nute. Next man up, 125 The Game. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman, Nick Frazier, Connor Nute. Again, I am live at Vanderbilt Health Football Center. Titans practice going on right now. We'll talk with Titans defensive end Truman Jones later on, likely during the Chase and Big Joe show as practice rolls along. Did want to get, again, every week when we have Dr. Crane on, I feel like we've got to talk some boys in gold. We got to talk some Nashville SC. So I wanted to get his thoughts on what was a thrilling win over the weekend against the Columbus Crew. Trailed 2-1 in the final minutes and scored twice in what, a minute and a half, you said?
Yeah, they scored in the 93rd minute and then the 95th minute. And it was like, whoa.
Well, I saw a tweet that said I wasn't able to watch, but I saw a tweet that said Nashville scores at the death to equalize it too. And I was like, oh, I guess they tied. And then I saw they won. You're right. You said it heading into the break. That's what championship level teams do. The best start through 21 matches in MLS history. Like this is a team that I think we need to be talking about more because they've got a legitimate shot to bring the MLS Cup home to Nashville. I know there's still a long way to go in the season. You got to stay healthy. You got to stay consistent. But the way this team is playing, it feels like it's a pretty complete squad that Brian Callahan has over there. BJ Callahan, I should say.
Yeah, BJ was on yesterday with Big Joe and I, and he mentioned, I think Joe asked him, like, what about this team, just keeps continuing to produce, had good momentum before the World Cup break, and then going into the second half of the season after the World Cup break. And he was honest about it. BJ said, we had a few injuries from the injury bug for the most part, but now we're getting guys back slowly but surely. And they're basically a full squad. They're just waiting for Warren Madrigal to get back. And even BJ asked him about it yesterday. And he said, yeah, he's on pace to get back to where he was at originally. Like he's on track with his rehab assignment in that sense. But no, this team, I think you look at them and say they have slowly developed this identity that has been missing for quite some time. Like under Gary Smith, they ran that 3 at the back. It was like a 3-5-2 in some cases, and they'd win games 1-0, 2-0. I will say this, like the game of soccer has evolved into something completely different, and BJ Callahan is just up with the times. He understands that you have to be kind of, in the case for the Tennessee Titans, fast and violent. He has a motto that goes, everybody attacks, everybody defends, and it rings true because you have Sam Surge that has dropped deeper into the midfield a little bit, and Hani Mukhtar as well that have dropped deeper in the midfield a little bit when you've had guys out injured. So they help supplement spaces on the field, and I think that's just something that this team has done a really good job with, of just adapting to the times that they've had, less quality players on the field. And they went to the transfer market. They got Elias Saad from the Bundesliga on loan this season, and I think that expires after the 2027 season, if I'm not mistaken. And they go and grab a defensive midfielder, Famara Kamara, a Senegalese midfielder. We've only seen about 22 minutes out of him, I think, during the Leagues Cup. But I think that's another depth piece that they have really grabbed for the midfield. But overall, their attack, Jake, is just, I don't want to say unbeatable, but they have so many different ways to attack teams. It's just fun to watch.
Right. I think that's something that we've talked about a ton when we've had these conversations about Nashville SC is they had star players the last few years. I mean, Hani Mukhtar obviously has been the MVP of the league. Sam Surge has been so good. But you needed a little bit more depth and you needed more options to put pressure on these opposing teams. And by bringing in Christian Espinosa and Warren Madrigal and all the other guys that they brought in, whether that was in the offseason or like you've mentioned, Jay Callahan, that hopefully will have the depth and the talent to be able to make a deep run when the playoffs roll around.
Yeah, and a name that doesn't get put to light in after games, even if it's a 3-2 thriller or whatever. But look at the goalkeeping, and Brian Schwacke. I think he has 14 clean sheets across all competitions this year. I mean, that is a player that prides himself. And it was after the, I believe, Wednesday game when they were in New York and they won 1-0 in like the 92nd minute, again in extra time. And Maxwell Waleji was the post-match press conference player, and he spoke on, Brian Schwacke, and someone asked him about just his overall performances. And he said, look, this guy is upset whenever there is 1 or 2 goals, but definitely 2. But when even there's 1 and he's just wanting to get a clean sheet, this guy is frustrated. And like, you get upset about, letting 1 goal in, whatever. But, I mean, the way Waleji described it, it was not your typical, oh, man, I let 1 in. It was like, why did I let this one in? Like, this is never going to happen again.
Yeah, and he's been great. We talked about it last week of the the save that he made on Messi on the PK. I mean,
Yeah.
How many saves have there been on Messi from the penalty spot ever? Like, I know I'm sure there's been a decent amount, but that's one of those where you got to go grab the ball and you got to bring that home, right? Like you just saved Lionel Messi. And I think he has been a huge part of this team too, that you're right, we probably aren't talking about enough.
Yeah, and if you go back to the League's Cup run for Nashville, they fielded the youngest starting 11 in club history against Leon the first match. And then obviously things didn't pan out the way they wanted it to. But in that time period, because I've asked BJ about this as well in some of the post-match press conferences, the just development from these younger players to build that confidence to go into the second half of the MLS season with this stretch of, hey, if we need to put Shaq Muhammad in there at right wing or somewhere along the forward position, they can use him for that. They don't have to rely on a partially gimped, Christian Espinoza if he is hurt, which he isn't. But I'm just saying, for an example, they can now rely on these younger players to play quality minutes, because that's what the League's Cup was for Nashville in some cases. I don't want to say they were scrimmages, but they played hard. They played tough. They played to the point of, hey, we're going to try and win this thing with some of the younger guys. So I think what BJ has done, he's developed this young mentality, this hungry mentality, and there's healthy competition, not only just in the forward group, but also in the midfield and also the defense.
Excited to see what they can do. Again, still a long way to go in the regular season, over 2 months remaining, but off to the best start in MLS history. You can't ask for much more than that. 49 points in 21 matches is just crazy.
The bright spot for this, Jake, real quick, is if Nashville ends up winning the Supporters Shield, they get the automatic bid into the CONCACAF Champions Cup.
Right.
So that's the big bright side to it all.
Yep. So and then if they win the MLS Cup, do they get the automatic bid into the Club World Cup?
I believe so. I can double check you on that. Yes.
I feel like I've heard that somewhere, but definitely could be wrong. Next game is Saturday against Cincinnati at Geodis Park. So another chance to go out and support the boys in gold as they look to continue their historic start. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Last call for phones. Is Trey still on hold?
Yep.
Trey, sorry. I'm so sorry. I forgot. I don't have the call screener in front of me. Let's go to Trey on the phone lines. Trey, what you got for us?
Hey, how y'all do? I was wondering what you was up to.
I'm sorry, Trey. I'm out at practice, so I don't have it just sitting right in front of me that you're on hold, and I completely forgot. Thank you for waiting.
No problem. Hey, Jake, all I wanted to say that I just want to tell you this, and I apologize for this, because the simple fact is that when I started going crazy over Cam Ward, everybody else started going crazy. So I apologize for all that animosity that you get on your radio station. But all I wanted to say, I want to hear from the people that were saying that Cam Ward comp player was Patrick Mahomes. That's all we heard during the offseason. He's Patrick Mahomes. He can make all the throws. Well, we're still trying to see when he's going to make these throws. And, it's like, I don't want to bash the young kid, because I believe the kid has talent. Let's not go crazy. The kid has talent. It's just how he's going to, format that talent to the field. Like, it's off, and I don't know if it's workable. I don't know if he'll get better. I know the fans want to see him do better. And, I want to see him drive the ball down the field and score a couple touchdowns. I look at it like this, Jake. Okay, at 3 o'clock in the morning, sub-zero temperature, I got a delivery going to Detroit. I cannot, not make this delivery happen. So I feel like if I can do a job by myself with no help, he got all those good players out there helping him, and they're only going to get better if he's better. They're going to play like crap because he's playing like crap. Nobody knows who these players is on our team, but everybody knows who Cam Ward is. So I hope and pray that Cam Ward gets the message. This isn't an interview. This is go time, baby. And I love y'all, and y'all have a good day. Thank you, Jake.
Thank you for the call, Trey. We appreciate it.
What a trip.
Trey, I guess, is taking credit for being the leader of the Ward Are You Doings. Is he saying that the only reason everyone questions Cam is because Trey started it.
I guess. I mean, I was with him at the beginning of his call when he said, comparing
Mahomes
him
thing.
to Mahomes, because he's right. Because during the draft process, that was the comp was.
Well, you know who said it first, right? Or maybe not first, but the biggest one that got people going was Borgonzi said that there's some Patrick in his game. So yeah, I get what Trey's saying there. Like Mahomes. And my thing with Mahomes has always been this. It's like he's so much more than the flashy plays. He makes the right plays. And that's what we're missing from Cam is, he does have the highlight reel plays. I mean, that Saints game last year, you could put together a 3 or 4 minute highlight reel of all the crazy plays he made, and they still lost the game because he wasn't doing enough of the regular things that you needed to do. So I think that's the part of the Mahomes comp that he needs to be better at. But it was funny. Borgonzi was the one who I think kind of coined that of like, he's got some Mahomes in him.
Well, I guess, his adjustment period to the Titans, trying to get that Kansas City DNA out of him. By the way, Jake, are you going to go on that trip with Trey if he has to deliver that package to Detroit?
Detroit? I mean, maybe if there's a Tigers game, but he said it's going to be the cold of winter, so probably not.
Yeah, never mind. You're busy. You got women's basketball.
I'm busy. Yeah, that's true. I can't make the trip up there. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. I'm glad I remembered quickly there that Trey was on hold. I feel horrible. I was planning on going back to him, and we just got completely sidetracked.
No, you loaded him up, man. That's what he's like a spring. Like you wait long enough, the spring gets real tight, and then you get him on the phone. True. Oh, he explodes, right?
Trey is like a fine wine. The longer you leave him on hold, the better the call gets.
Can I ask you a Virginia Tech question coming up next?
Sure. Yeah, we'll wrap up the show with that if you want. We've got a couple more minutes left. Again, Titans are on the practice field. Last call for phones if you've got anything for us. Jake Lyman, Nick Frazier, Connor Nute, next man up, 125 the game. Wrapping up the show, next man up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman, live at Titans training camp. Practice going on right now. Nick Frazier, Connor Nute, back at the studio. We got a couple minutes here. Connor, you said you had a question for me about Virginia Tech.
I do. I don't know if you've seen this on Twitter, but it's all over my timeline right now of the Virginia Tech team going to class.
I did see this.
And taking pictures in the front row and saying, at James Franklin, I'm 10 minutes early to class.
Yep.
And in the front row. Is that a James Franklin thing or is that a Virginia Tech thing?
It's not a Virginia Tech thing. I've never seen this before. I've seen UVA fans have been making fun of it, they made the PowerPoint say, like, how to win a national championship 101, and then in parentheses, we don't know. They've had that up there, but this is definitely a James Franklin thing of maybe he wants his players to put it out there that they're actually going to class.
Like, I saw the punter did it this morning, and I was like, the punter's not going to get his spot taken. It makes me want to start doing it when I get to work. Like, I'll take a picture sitting behind the board and tag
and
Chase.
Just send it to Chase,
10 minutes early.
I don't even know who the Hokies punter is this year. For years and years, Tech's punter was their best player. AJ Hughes and Oscar Bradburn, they were so good for a long time. I don't know who the superstar punter is anymore.
It is Luke Jones.
Luke Jones. Oh, freshman from Virginia Beach. Yeah, got to say I don't know. Maybe he's good, maybe he's not. But yes, I think that's a Franklin thing. But yes, maybe we should all adopt that of all of us, as soon as we get into work, just send a picture of the studio and tag Chase on Twitter. I'm sure Chase would love that.
10 minutes early. Don't forget.
Every day, all day, every day.
Wrapping up the show here. News of the day. We talked about to start off the show. Blaise Berlowitz going to be the starting quarterback week 1 for Vanderbilt. A little bit surprising, and I've seen some Vandy fans out there in the Twitterverse and on our text line who maybe don't understand it. I think we just need to wait and see the bigger picture with this of what does this mean long term. Clark Lee, has a plan for what Jared Curtis's freshman year is going to look like. We don't know. The reports say that Curtis is going to play in week 1 against Austin Peay. How long? We don't know. I think a lot of this, you can look at it, and there's been a lot of Vandy fans saying it's a mistake to not start Jared Curtis. But let's wait and see what the bigger picture is and what the plan is for the first few weeks of the season before we make some kind of judgment on this decision from Clark Lee and whether it's the right one.
Yeah, and again, I look at this as a calculated move for Clark Lee because there's a reason why this guy was SEC Coach of the Year before, and it's because of decisions like this. He knows this offense, he knows this team way better than national media and people. I'd say, well, not you, Jake, because you know stuff about Vandy. I don't. I'm just the average Joe that's from Nashville, okay? But no, to my point though, it's just Clark Lee understands this team inside and out, just like his own family.
Yeah, and I went to the scrimmage 2 weeks ago, and I don't think I really drew anything like conclusive between the two quarterbacks. Both had good moments. Both had moments that they may have wanted back. But the thing I drew the most from was just how intellectually and coherently, completely that Clark Lee was able to display his thoughts on the quarterback competition and everything that's going on. These aren't, and I know Jared Curtis is not in the college football video game, so maybe this isn't the right analogy, but it's not like in the college football video game where you look and you say, oh, my true freshman's a 79 overall and the redshirt junior's a 76 overall. Nice and easy. Let's put him in there. There's more that goes into this in terms of his readiness and the emotional maturity, the football IQ, all of that. And trying to keep the confidence high for Jared Curtis, I think, is also a big thing. I think with AJ Swan, we saw that when he turned the ball over a ton early in his career, I think you saw the confidence go away. You want to make sure that you're putting Jared Curtis in the right position to succeed when he is given the opportunity.
Yeah, so if it's a second half in the first game or a second half or first half against Delaware in the second game, I think that's where he's probably going to have to really strut his feathers and prove to not only Clark Lee, but to the Vanderbilt fan base that he belongs as the quarterback one. But for the time being, if it's Blaise Berlowitz, then go ahead, because he understands this offense. There are players that are coming back from last year, MK Young, Cedric Alexander. I mean, you could add more and more to the conversation, but there's that continuity factor that plays into all this. And as for Jared Curtis, yes, he was there for some of the bowl game practices, and he was there this entire offseason, but maybe it's just not enough. And again, Blaise Berlowitz has been with, this team way longer than Curtis.
Yeah, and we'll see. The reports coming out from On3 and Pete Thamel say Blaise Berlowitz going to start week 1, but Jared Curtis also going to play. We will see how that all unfolds. But now, both quarterback competitions, at least we have an answer for week 1 for Tennessee and Vanderbilt. It's going to be Faison Brandon for the Vols coming up against Furman. And the Commodores are going to start Blaise Berlowitz in week 1. Big thanks to both of you. Been a fun show. Make sure you stick around. Chase and Big Joe are coming up next. Titans practice is still going on. We will stick around. Defensive end Truman Jones going to join us at some point after practice wraps up. So make sure you keep it tuned right here. Back tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. with Corey Curtis. That does it for us. Chase and Big Joe coming up next here on 102.5 The Game.